Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Hang Up. It's Wednesday evening around 7 o'clock. I'm Matt Dillahunty. You've fallen into my brain dump area here. Thanks so much for tuning in on the Line Network. Look, it says it right above my head, the Line. Let's talk. And we have open lines. So if you look down below, there will be a telephone number for you to call so that you can call in and get started right away, 720-619-2288, or you can go to call in. There's a link down below this for Call-In Studio so that you can actually go there directly from your computer in order to be able to call us without having to use your phone. It's amazing. Uh, I have a couple quick things to talk about, but first of all, I guess I should show off my shirt. There you go. See, I have a birthday coming up in like 11 days, and part of the birthday celebration is that Jimmy and I are having a little t-shirt contest. I'm sure Arden's got a graphic that she can put up, but you can also go to linemerch.com to find more information about this particular t-shirt. Buy this one right here, get this one, the one with the face on it, the one that's for End Boss, the one I'm going to use for a new project that I'm not going to tell you about just yet, but we're having fun with a lot of stuff. Or you can also get Jimmy's shirt because it's great. Not afraid to disappoint, daddy. But it's just there so that you can help participate in supporting and joining and contributing to the Line Network. Now, we do a lot of different shows on the line. This is the Wednesday night show, which is mine. It's all mine. It'll be mine. Rah, rah, rah. But in addition to this program, we also do the Transatlantic Call-In Show on Thursdays. So tomorrow, starting at 2 p.m. Central, basically 4 hours. Look at your clock right now. Figure out what 4 hours ago was, wherever you are. That's what time tomorrow Transatlantic Call-In Show will start. And that's with Arden and Dr. Ben. The Sunday show will be Jimmy and myself. Monday Skeptalk will be Shannon Q. Yay. With Will McSee. And Tuesday's Chewed Gum will be Arden and Stacey Grant from Stacey's Mom Podcast. I saw somebody in chat just a minute ago saying that Chewed Gum's turning out to be one of the best shows, if not the best show on the Line Network. And yeah, I'm not going to fight you on that. They're killing it, and it's awesome, and I'm so excited to see it. Next week's Hang Up will be myself. Oh, is that correct? I get to have Eva's Frame back on next week. That's so awesome.
Yep.
I had to check it with my producer because I had thought that there was somebody different on next week, and no, yay, it's going to be me and Eve next week. So we're going to get some bleed over from Chewed Gum to kind of help boost the Hang Up ratings. Lines are open right now, 720-619-2288. I want to talk to you guys about something. Mainly, it's the whole reason that my guest tonight is here is in 11 days, March 31st, will be my birthday. It'll be my 55th birthday. And it'll also be Easter Sunday. My birthday falls on Easter Sunday with some regularity, and I will be traveling back home on that Sunday from Florida. For those who haven't seen and aren't aware, I just posted something out to Facebook today. That is a link to the debate that I'll be doing on that Friday. Friday is, of course, Good Friday, so March 29th. I shared out a link to it. It will be at myself and Than Christopoulos at a church in Tampa. There's a link there. It'll be available live. They've invited me down. They're flying me down for this, and we'll be talking about whether or not the resurrection happened. Of all the debates that I could do, I love doing NBOSS. I love, going to things. I even had fun at most of the debate con things and stuff like that. I love doing those things. Nothing is ever going to be as enjoyable for me as getting the opportunity to go into a church and debate right there in front of all those believers. I've done it several times. I debated Michael Licona at the First Baptist, or at Austin Baptist Church, not First Baptist Church of Austin, Austin Baptist Church. And I love doing it. Don't me wrong. I love you guys, and like getting the calls in and having the opportunity to talk to people about stuff. But if I could be in a church every Sunday doing debates, or every Friday doing debates that they had to then, address or clean up on Sunday. Awesome. I'm happy to do that. But if I wasn't doing this debate, I know exactly where I would be. I would be at the American Atheist Convention in Philadelphia. I first went to the convention it was in Iowa, Des Moines, Iowa, and that was 2010, 2011, somewhere in that time frame. Maybe it was before then. In any case, Nick can look it up. I was the first one that I actually went to in person was in Des Moines, Iowa. And I had a great time. I got to meet some of my heroes. Frank Zindler gifted me some of his books, and that's where we first met and talked. And eventually, I found myself on the board of directors for American Atheist. So, full disclosure, I'm not an unbiased person here advocating for this. I've been part of the organization, both at conventions and behind the scenes on the board of directors since that Des Moines convention, pretty much. The time before Des Moines, I really wasn't that interested in becoming a part of American Atheist as an organization. There was some resistance in me to joining a national organization, and in my case, there were things that had happened in the past that had kind of soured me towards the idea in general. Former leaders had said certain things, and I was like, "Oh, that's not right." And I have my way of thinking about how things should go, but from the time that I first got involved at the Des Moines convention all the way up to today, I've been incredibly happy and proud of not only serving on the board of American Atheist, but also being able to watch the organization progress and to see how they dealt with problems when they arose and how they've moved forward. And then we got slammed by COVID, and a global pandemic that basically made it so that I wasn't going to a convention every couple of months. Matter of fact, there was a period of time in like the early teens, like 2013, 2014, 15, 16, something like that. I was at a convention once a month, and people were like, "Oh my gosh, how this is amazing. Everything's going awesome. We're getting everybody involved. Soon this is just going to be, like Dragon Con," or okay, that's a little bit ridiculous. I don't think the atheist conventions are ever going to be quite as big as Dragon Con, but by the time we got to the point where we could justify being that big, we wouldn't need the convention, at least not not for the reasons we're doing it. But I've enjoyed working, be involved. That's in Philadelphia is where I would be this Easter, and every Easter I would be at the American Atheist Convention if it weren't for the fact that I had been booked for something else. And one thing to remember is that conventions in general, since just before the pandemic and a little bit afterwards, conventions started to decline. People didn't want to travel as much between the pandemic, between the economy. There were other issues. We were moving more and more stuff online, and we had done a lot of conventions. And so now I think we're kind of perhaps in a ramping back up period. But I wanted to make sure that even though I can't go to the convention, we could get somebody in here to talk to all of you about it. Because if you're in the Philadelphia area, or if you can get to the Philadelphia area for Easter weekend, there are some good reasons to go and participate. And the most common questions, you guys get your calls in now. Be ready to ask, why do I need to go hang out with other atheists? Why do I want to do that? Why would, isn't that just like going to church if you're all together like that? There are plenty of questions that come up of why would we need a convention? And for me, the joy of participating in the conventions is, okay, you get to hear a number of different talks or have some workshops that might teach you some things to help you in your area. But for me, it's about meeting the people. And I don't mean that in the sense of I'm here to meet the people. I mean all of the people meeting all the other people, so that you can run into somebody in Philadelphia at the American Atheist Convention, sit down and talk to them, have a conversation, and then find out, hey, you guys only live 30 minutes apart, an hour apart, or here's what's working for their organization, and you might be able to use it for yours. Or if there's not an organization in your area, how did that person start one? What can you do to start one? How can you participate? All of these things of being able to network a collection of individuals with the knowledge of how to do conventions, how to do local groups, how to do gatherings, how to help people out who are finding their way out of religion and need assistance, whether they're going through the recovering from religion.org or something like that. So tonight I brought in my friend and the president of American Atheist, Nick Fish, to promote the American Atheist Convention, to answer those kinds of questions, to do anything and everything he can to inspire all of you to participate. And if you're not actually able, first of all, Nick, if they can't get to Philadelphia, are they just screwed? Do they just not get to know anything about what's going on at the convention, or are we making plans to allow people to participate remotely?
Yeah. I think one of the challenges, and you hit it directly on the head, about the transition to a lot of online events, is what we found is that folks there's a lot of sort of intangibles, bits and pieces that are really important to be in person for at the conference. And there's a je ne sais quoi about being there in person, where those informal abilities to connect with people from all walks of life, from all over the country that you were talking about, is really, really difficult to replicate online and in a hybrid event. We are able to stream talks, but what people told us is that the talks are sort of I don't want to say the least important thing, but not the top 2 or 3 things that they care most about when they come to these events. They care very much about the networking, about connecting with activists and community leaders and groups and people just from all over the country. And that's really hard to do well in a hybrid setting. We did 2 virtual conferences during COVID, and it was almost as much work as just running an in-person conference, quite frankly. But we really made a lot of effort and took a lot of time making sure that people were able to have as close to that standard experience as possible online. But it's really, really, really difficult to do both. And we want to do something really well. We have a smaller team. I mean, we've got about 12 people that work professionally for the organization full time, and then just a really tremendous core of volunteers that work with us at the conference as well, that help us actually execute the thing, which is great. But it's impossible to do both for an organization our size. And just in general, I've never seen it done especially well, honestly. So it's not that you're screwed. We move the thing around. And there's a reason that we go to different places all throughout the country with these conferences every single year. So you mentioned having a conference in Iowa. We think it's really important to have geographically diverse places to have our conferences, because we recognize that it is a burden. It's really challenging to spend a lot of money to travel, especially if you're somebody who's coming from all the way across the country, especially if you're a person who is leaving or has just left a high control religion. Perhaps you've lost family, you've lost your job, you've been through a divorce, things like that. Those are the folks who need that community more than anyone. And the fact that it is challenging to come all the way across the country is something we're very cognizant of. So we make every effort to make this affordable. Folks can check on our website. You'll see that there's a sort of no questions asked fixed income ticket for $99, which basically covers the bare minimum costs that we have out of pocket to put this thing on. Not any of the costs associated with our staffing or anything like that to do this, but just how much money is going out the door that we can cover and hopefully make up the difference in sponsorships and in donations. That's what we're talking about. The full price ticket is $299, and so you're getting a heck of a deal, and you're not getting any less of an experience. But we're very aware that this is it's difficult to get to these things. So we've been in Iowa, as you said. We've been in Oklahoma. We've been in Utah. We've been in Arizona last year. We were in Atlanta the year before. I'll tell you that next year we're going to be in Minneapolis. So if you're in that region and it's hard for you to get to Philadelphia, I understand. But we'll hopefully see you in the Midwest. As a Michigander myself, I am. We're going back to my home territory, more or less. As long as it's not Ohio, I'm okay with it.
You all are incredibly lucky, because there have been several years where I have been unable to attend the convention because I had a conflict. I was really lucky because I had a triple bypass in December, and then I recovered just enough to do a full hour-and-a-half magic show at the convention just 3 months later. Although Nick can tell you that at the end of the hour and a half, my butt was sitting in a chair on stage, just sweating and done. So it was a good work.
You heroically did it, I will say.
Oh, I loved it, and it was so much fun. It was also very kind of good for me in the sense of it gave me confirmation that I was going to
Yeah,
be okay, and that there
100%.
were, I was going to be able to hang out with the people that I cared about. But every year when I go to the convention, we we don't tend to announce the following year's convention publicly until like opening night. So I was like not even going to ask. I was like, hey Nick, where are we going next year? Because it's oh no,
Yeah.
it's a secret. We're going to announce it there. So you guys got some goodly spilt tea here about Minneapolis next year. Wow, that's amazing. I can't wait.
Well, we're
I'm
kicking it
I'm
off in a
I'm
week,
looking for
so
excuse to get there.
yeah, I don't want to belabor the point too long. We're kicking things off here in a week. I don't feel the need to keep it under lock and key that much longer.
That's awesome. Now, I looking at this, obviously one of the big reasons for having the convention's always been American Atheist's primary fundraiser or big fundraising event for the year. But one of the things that we've also constantly done, and you talked about this a little bit when we've moved the convention around to different places, it's trying to make sure that there are some people who are going to come to the convention no matter where we have it. They're just going to
Right.
show up, and they're there every year. And we love those people. They are some of the best contributors. They are some of the reason that we're able to have a $99, entry for, people suffering hardships. And there are people who pay extras for, VIP conventions and being able to have dinner with certain speakers and things like that. But there's another set of people who are only going to be able to come to a convention if it's within driving distance. And even that is going to be potentially difficult. If you've got, I have no kids. I wouldn't mind having kids, but I'm fine without them too. I got plenty of snakes. Um, the notion of having a family with 2 or 3 kids and trying to figure out, hey, how do we go away for a weekend, and pay for a hotel fee and a conference entrance fee and all that stuff, it can be difficult. But watching people show up at their first atheist convention to say, uh, oh, this is what it's like, and we're not there's nothing sneaky about it. It's like the opportunity for some people to be out and proud and meet other individuals might only ever happen at something like AACon.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you mentioned families. I think one of the things that we really try hard to do is make sure that there is programming that's relevant for people with a broad range of experiences. Like you, I don't have any kids, but we have a ton of people with kids. And we want to make sure that the programming we're presenting is not just us sitting around agreeing with each other about how God doesn't exist, but rather giving practical tools for people who want to protect and defend their public schools from attacks from the people that are trying to ban books, or the people who are trying to push LGBTQ teachers out of the classroom, or the people who are just trying to straight up destroy public education by privatizing it and moving all the money into private religious schools. So we're having people talk about that because we think it's important. We know that it's important. We're having people there to talk about things like reproductive access, making sure that we're protecting and defending the right to access abortion. There is no religious demographic, if you want to call us that, that is more supportive of abortion access than atheists. There is no quote unquote religious demographic that is more supportive of LGBTQ rights, including the rights of trans people, than atheists. And so we're going to talk about all that. We're going to talk about the threats that our community is facing from white Christian nationalists who are weaponizing their faith, their religion against all of us, how it threatens our democracy. And we're going to give some practical tips on how to actually get involved at the local level. This is not just about the academics of atheists. This is not an academic exercise for us. This is real world. Here's what we're doing on the ground right now. Here's how you can get involved. Last year we had a panel that included folks who literally went out there and escorted people to clinics, talked about funding abortions. I think Arden has a photo of that in the background there of a panel that we had talking about what it looks like to fight for reproductive justice in the South. So these are people who are going out there every single day, making sure that people in South Carolina have access to abortion, because it is such a tremendous issue for the people that are living in those states that we're losing our rights, and we're losing them because of white Christian nationalist takeovers of our courts, of our political system. And what better place to push back against that than Pennsylvania, a state that when I moved here in 2022, the gubernatorial nominee was someone who was an avowed white Christian nationalist, somebody who said, yes, absolutely, I am a Christian nationalist, and I am going to, that's how I would run the state. And, thankfully that guy didn't win, and we have a very reasonable governor now. But, this is what we're dealing with. And it's what's at stake this year in an election year. It's what's at stake every year. But this is not just happening in far-flung places that, where no one lives, or, that people sort of write off cynically and say, oh, well, just forget about Texas. Well, no, there are how many millions of people, tens of millions of people living in Texas? How many tens of millions of people living in Alabama or in Georgia or Mississippi or Louisiana who are under the boot, under the heel of Christian nationalism every single day? And we can't just write off those people. And so it's really important for us to stand up, come together, give people some tools that they can take back to their hometowns, to their communities to fight back. But also, as you said, to find community, to find a place of belonging, so that that you've got a community that has your back, and that shares your values. And that's what our conferences are all about.
I'm just going to go through the whole thing right now. You can go to convention.atheists.org. And if you're there, you can also go check out the schedule as well. I'm going to run through the schedule real quick, mainly because I'm kind of excited. If I didn't have a conflict, I would be there, because I had to miss a couple of these. And don't get me wrong, I'm going to have fun hanging out at a Christian church in Tampa and debating the resurrection. I think that's where my skills are most needed this particular Easter weekend. But it would be so awesome to come up there and hang out. Thursday registration starts in the evening, and then there's a special ticketed event, a charity pub quiz and game night hosted by Sarah Blaine. Then Friday, regular registration opens at 8 a.m. There's an intro. Some guy named Nick Fish is going to get up and talk along with Jen Scott and kind of tell a little bit about the strategic vision for American Atheists. But here's the things you can expect on Friday. There's a legal and policy drop-in hours. There's a lecture, Religion Makes Me Sick, How Religion Impacts Our Health Outcomes. There's another one on disobedient women, how a small group of faithful women exposed abuse, brought down powerful pastors, and ignited an evangelical reckoning. Lunch break. Then there's Strength and Unity, fostering community through mutual aid and services initiatives. Then Jeff Blackwell, who's been a guest on this show several times, the lawyer is in, addressing church-state separation violations. Then David Brown and Christina Iacona are talking Unreasonable, the secular activism on the ground live podcast recording. Betsy DeVille will be there for Coping with Loss and Non-Believer's Guide to Grief, something that I just can't stress enough how important that is, and how much that it really starts resonating with people, both with organizations like Grief Beyond Belief, but just in general, figuring out that, without getting into any of the snide stuff of, the churches have managed to, religion's changed our view on death, and now they've co-opted and monetized all the aspects of death. Setting all that aside, religions have built up a flawed understanding of life and death, and it fails to give people the skills that they might need to actually cope with grief properly, so that when somebody comes across death, which is an inevitable part of life, it's not completely as devastating as it can be in some circumstances, and where we haven't built up false expectations about what to expect, so that we don't know how to handle anything. Dealing with grief is a huge deal. Sam McGuire is going to go back to basics, rediscovering the fundamentals of group organizing. Allison Gill and Melina Cohen, pushing back privatization and advocating for secular schools. Aaron Rabinowitz, Creator Accountability Network, a new approach to community ethics. Aaron reached out to me just the other day about this as well. There's a really good chance you'll see Aaron visiting the show to talk about this outside of AACon. Kelly Rhodes and Devon Graham, train the trainer, self-managed abortion, safe and supported. Stephanie Vaughn, yay, setting boundaries, a problem with communities, people. and Debbie Goddard, Strategies for Building Effective Activism Campaigns. This is still just Friday. Bonnie Cleveland, Schooling the System, Engaging in Effective School Board Activism. David Rosman, Ink and Impact, Harnessing Letters to the Editor for Atheist Advocacy. Then there's the awards dinner and a dance party hosted by Amanda Marcotte. So don't wear your flip-flops. Sorry, I like giving Amanda a little bit of grief about that. But that's only Friday. I'll let you guys go to the website and look up the schedule for Saturday and for Sunday. There's something there for everyone who's actually interested in activism and building communities, dealing with all the issues. We're in an election year, Nick, and American Atheist is nonpartisan, and yet the bulk of the atheist community, is concerned with church-state separation issues primarily. And so without going into, Trump's awful, what the hell are people thinking, blah, 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 blah. Where are we on serious church-state separation issues? Or is this actually a second-tier issue right now while we try to rebuild after losing Roe and watching potentially, insurrection becoming legalized and all kinds of other stuff? Where does church-state separation sit on realistic priorities? I know it's always going to be American Atheist priority and supporting that, but for you and me, in addition to supporting church-state separation with American Atheists, where does that fit in the danger realm? I mean, is it? It's certainly not as big a deal as climate change, but we're not a climate change organization, but we are a church-state separation organization. How panicked should we be right now?
I don't want to say panicked. I think we certainly have to recognize that there are some really tremendous threats that are existential to our ability in the United States to have a secular democracy. And I use that phrase intentionally, that it's not just about the secular, it's also about the democracy side of things, and that both are at threat. And I think that one of the things that we've found here is that this isn't just an either or thing. There's not a hierarchy of threat, that all of these threats are connected, because the people who are the most likely to support the use of violence, to support, undercutting every single civil rights protection for LGBTQ people, for non-Christians, for Black individuals, for anyone on the basis of race or ethnicity or whatever it might be, gender protections, and so on. They're doing it because they explicitly say this, because of white Christian nationalism, because they believe that there is a select group of people who have the right to dominate the rest of us. They have the right to, because they've been chosen by God to be the chosen ones to lead our nation. And that's why they support Donald Trump. American Atheist is nonpartisan. But that doesn't mean that we're non-political. So much of the work that happens in all of our daily lives is political. Choices that we make to act or not act, those are all often political choices. I don't think we need to disabuse ourselves of the notion that we can opt out of politics in some way by just saying, oh, well, I'm nonpartisan. Like that doesn't work. Yeah. Politics is engaging in any sort of activism. It's getting involved civically. It doesn't have to be partisan, but it does need to be, we need to be clear that it is the ability to affect change. And if we take seriously what we say about this being the one life we have to live, that, we believe there are human solutions to human problems. If we actually take that seriously, how can you not want to get involved and fight for a better tomorrow? The people that we have, speaking and Matt ran through a really tremendous group of folks and a ton of programming that's on Friday. On Saturday, one of the people we have speaking is Kate Cohen, who is an author and a journalist. She writes for the Washington Post. She just wrote a book that is a really tremendous book called We of Little Faith, Why I Stopped Pretending to Believe and Maybe You Should Too. And what she's going to be talking about is why America needs atheists more than ever right now, which I think is a very appropriate conversation to have at our conference. So thanks for that, Kate. And we're really thrilled to have her. But, if you look at every measure of engagement in politics, and again, this is not anything partisan, atheists are at the top of the list. Atheists are more engaged than white Christian evangelicals by quite a substantial margin. We are more likely to vote. We are more likely to volunteer for campaigns. We are more likely to attend events. We are more likely to put out yard signs. We're more likely to canvass. Literally everything, every measure of political activity, atheists are at the top of it. And the reason for that, I think, is because in the United States, being an atheist is such a stigmatized identity. We face tremendous amounts of social, political, personal, workplace costs for being an atheist, for acknowledging what we believe or don't believe. And because of that, the people who are willing to claim that title, to wear that mantle as an atheist unapologetically, are the people who recognize what's at stake, the people who see what the threats are to our democracy, that, you know, if you truly believe that God has ordained you to dominate over everyone else, then of course violence is legitimate. Then of course cheating at elections or usurping popular democracy is allowed. Of course gerrymandering and making it impossible for, you know, young people, for Black people, for women, for anyone to vote, like, of course that's legitimate if you genuinely believe that. You know, we're seeing the horrifying side effects of this ideology that has gone unchallenged, and you and I have had really great long conversations about this, like, for years, because I was just thinking back, like, we've known each other for almost 15 years now, which is crazy.
Yeah.
And you know, we had these conversations about how you know, the choice about, or the conversation about abortion was always like, nobody was ever taking it seriously because it was like, well, Roe is there. And so they were able to just kind of repeat this mantra over and over and over again. Life begins at conception. Life begins at conception. You know, every life is sacred, whatever. If you genuinely believe that, of course you can't have exemptions for rape or incest. You know, I think people may remember the Todd Aiken thing of like, well, rape is a legitimate form of conception. It's like, oh my God, this is horrible. Or, you know, the human body has a way of shutting things down, whatever the crazy thing he said.
Yeah.
But like, if you genuinely believe that, then the health of the mother cannot be a reason for an abortion. It has to be the death of the mother, right? You can't just be, oh, she might be ill, she might, you know, have some problem. Because if you genuinely believe that you're killing a baby, of course there can be no exceptions for that. And they're never challenged on this. They were never pushed back. And now that they made all these laws, they're actually like playing with fire here. They caught the car. They're the dog that caught the car. And people are seeing exactly what that ideology put into practice looks like. Of if life begins at conception, that what that means is that IVF is now illegal. What that means is that an OBGYN who has to perform an abortion to save, you know, the health of the mother is going to be charged with murder. And, you know, that they're willing to let people bleed out in emergency rooms or just outside the emergency room in Texas because the law says that, you know, you might go to prison for performing an abortion. And that's what we're seeing. And so people need to realize that the stakes of this is not just hypothetical. These are real people's lives that are at stake here, and that we're willing to do something, and that our allies are willing to do something. And people are starting to see that religion is at the core of so much of this dangerous ideology that's out there. So it's not that church-state separation is an ancillary or secondary issue. It's that church-state separation, religious freedom, and religion are effused through every single issue that matters to people. And that includes climate change. That includes abortion. That includes LGBT equality. That includes public education. It includes basic democracy. And I'd never thought I would be in the situation where we're talking about whether or not, you know, some group of people genuinely believe that they are ordained by God to dominate over the rest of us, and therefore violence is okay. But here we are, and that's where we're at.
I tell you, you know, I've been fortunate to meet and interact with so many different people. We're getting ready to take a call from someone who's genuinely, I can't say we're like good friends, but I'll always love interacting with him. Wish I could hang out with him all the time. He lives 2.5 hours away, but we never get to do anything. I was thinking back, you know, you're talking about how long we've known each other. I don't remember when you and I first met, but I do remember, you know, when you've been friends with somebody for a long time, there's like one key moment where it's like, yeah, we knew each other before then, but from this point on, it's just, okay, you're in my friend group now. You came down to Austin, and you and me and Beth went to dinner, and I think it was Z Tejas, and we had somebody, I think Beth maybe had the potato gnocchi. Not that I remember every dinner everybody's ever had, but I just remember the three of us sitting there talking about AA and talking about, you know, the future and stuff. And And yeah, ever since then, it's just been, it's Nick. It's not just somebody I met, but somebody I'm working with, who I'm friends with, and everything else. And so, speaking of one of my favorite people, Will from Houston is calling in right now, the state director for Texas, to tell everybody about the convention. Will, why didn't you just be a guest on the show sometime?
Done and done. Let's do it.
Sweet. So talk us up, man. You doing all right?
For real. I'm doing great. For real. You said it earlier that the convention is just awesome. It's been awesome for years, and I can confirm. My first convention was 2019 in Cincinnati, and holy shit! I mean, I was so impressed. Like, everyone was witty and cool. I'm kind of an older guy, pretty even keeled. My highs aren't too high, and my lows aren't too low. But fuck, I mean, since then I've been looking. Once the convention ends, I look forward to the next one. Like, it's all year I have this anticipation for the next one. So that's me kind of hyping up the conventions. It kind of made me this super activist that I am here in Houston. And Nick said earlier about, well, how can you not do something? And just people say it, and if it ends there, people are lost. I mean, they have jobs, they don't know what to do. But at these conventions, you actually learn what to do. You have all these options. You can pick one, do your little bit of activism to help, and you're part of a grassroots effort. So yeah, 2 thumbs up for these conventions. They're terrific.
Now, last time we almost got to hang out. I came down to Houston for a debate, and you got to hang out with Aron for a little bit, probably with beer and cigars and all the stuff that I would have probably liked to, but there wasn't time then on that trip. Are you going to be in Philly?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I'll be Philly.
So you got to get the Texas representation there.
Yeah, we got to watch out though. Will's probably cigars are a must, but if you're hanging out with Aron, it's the nuclear chicken wings is the challenge. Here in Philly though, it'll be cheesesteaks. We'll see if we can find just some absurdly hot cheesesteaks to tempt Aron with. We'll see.
All right.
And I'll just one thing I want to mention about Will that Will said. You don't have to come out of these conferences being a super activist. And Will has really gotten involved and goes above and beyond, doing just a ton of work on top of his day job as a doctor. So you don't have to do that. You don't have to be the person that's, working almost a second job, volunteering with us or going out there and testifying or helping run a local group. Oftentimes, the single most impactful thing you can do is like doing one thing, is finding that one thing you can do that is just a brief action that you can take that's going to take a couple minutes, maybe once a month, but that is tremendously impactful because it's putting a human face on the struggles that we're facing. It's putting a human face to an elected member of Congress or to your local representative or to your school board about what's at stake here. And having that person humanizing the experience, talking about exactly what's going on here, like that's of vital importance. The other thing that that you can do that doesn't look anything like policy advocacy is working in a local community, is finding your group of people that you can lean on and who can lean on you. And that's a tremendous thing that I know that some of us will say, I'm an atheist because I don't want to go to this thing on Sundays. Well, that's fine. But some people left a community like that and really want that again, but don't want the religious side of it. And so that's when groups like Houston Oasis or the group, one of the groups that Will's involved in, or so many other local groups that are on the ground, that's the work that they do. When people are having the worst day of their life and they're like, okay, who do I call because I need somebody to pick up my kid from school because I'm in the emergency room, or something is wrong with my cat, as the case may be if you're watching right now. I need to go take care of that. Who can I call? And the answer is somebody that I know from my local group, somebody that I know. If you're religious, the answer is somebody from your church. But if you're not in a church, who do you call? Who do you lean on? Who do you turn to in those times of crisis? The answer is hopefully people who share your values, who care about you and who you care about as well. And that's what comes out of a lot of these, comes out of our conference and that we're able to develop. It's not just the, policy advocacy, it's the community side of things. And that's a really key part of this that I think Will does a tremendous job of, and that so many of our folks do a great job of as well.
Absolutely, Nick. What I tell people all the time here: figure out what your passion is, and we all have this list of things that could get better in society: LGBTQ stuff, repro rights, climate. It's 20 plus long. But I tell people, find your passion. Tell me what it is, and I'll direct you in the right way where to focus this energy into making the world a better place. And you're right. Once a month, you can go to bed at night smiling, saying, "Okay, I've done something," and that's incredibly healing in these tough times to be able to do something.
Yep.
So, Will, don't get me wrong. I will. Arden and I will reach out, and we're going to be probably doing some reptile conventions in Houston as well. But I tell you what, at a minute, not only would I love to get you on as just a guest some Wednesday when we have time, but since you are the Texas State Director for American Atheists, if you ever have a news item relevant to Texas that you need a way to get that message out, you just go straight to the head of the line anytime you want to call in and then make an announcement on a Wednesday for sure.
Thank you, Matt. That's going to help a bunch. Yeah, I need more visibility for what we're doing because we're doing great stuff here, both in Houston and Texas wide. So I'll take you up on that.
Yep, we'll get together. We'll talk. We'll figure out how often we can get you on when we really need to let people know something. Know what they can do in Texas and what you need, because I've worked with several of the state representatives for American Atheists, and some of them are like machines of here's what's going on. Here's what's going on. Let me know what's going on. And others parse out things a little better and say, oh, hang on, this one may not be as important. This one we've already got handled. If I'm going to reach out and grab volunteers, I want to make sure that I don't waste resources on this issue, whatever. Will use me until I'm dead. Just grab me and point me in whatever direction you need for AA stuff for sure.
Thank you so much, Matt. Kick ass next week. And Nick, I'll see you next week.
All right. I'll see you next week.
Awesome. We'll see you later. Thanks,
Wonderful.
Will.
Thanks, fellas.
The cat says goodbye as well.
I've managed to lock our cat out of the room here. Although there's a couple of other guests that I've attempted to have on the show from our menagerie here, but all of them are a grand distraction, and most of them won't just sit still. Although I think we have one gecko that would probably just sit on my head, maybe for a little while, but who knows? So we've got other callers as we wait for some of them to get in. There's a rather lengthy list of calls that have been screened, but we do have. I'm going to get right with you, Daz. I'm going to mute you for just a second. This, like all the other shows on the Line Network, is a call-in show. And if you are a theist caller, if you are someone who believes in some kind of God or has some sort of supernatural belief, you will always be put directly through to the head of the line. We have a limited number of phone lines, and so we try to make sure that we only keep one or two available for atheists. We're gonna bump it up one because we're talking with Nick and we're talking about the convention stuff here today. But if you, for example, have questions about trans rights issues, I have a correction to make, which is tomorrow's episode of TACIS will not start at 2:00. So you remember when I said, hey, look at your clock and subtract 4 hours, and that's when it's no. Tomorrow it's going to start at 5. So look at your clock now and subtract 1 hour and 46 minutes. and that's the time tomorrow the Transatlantic Call-In show is actually going to start. So here we go with calling from the UK is Daz, pronouns are he, him, with a question about faith. So welcome, Daz. You're on with Matt and Nick.
Hi, Matt. Hi, Nick. Yeah, I have a question about faith. With the world that's going on right now, I'm an atheist. I'm starting to drift, and people keep telling me, have faith in this, have faith in that, it'll be okay. What is faith, and what should I believe in faith?
What is faith, and what should you believe based on faith?
Yeah. I get a lot of people, I mean religious people, saying to me, it'll be okay, Darren. Have faith. have faith in this, have faith in that with what's going on in my life.
What are they telling you to have faith in?
Jesus, the Lord. I was brought up as a Christian as a kid. Probably when I was 14, broke away from it. I'm now 56. But just lately, I'm starting to be drawn back into this sort of, believe in this, believe in that, and have faith. Like your take on it, you know?
Nick, what do you think of when people are telling you to have faith? And
Yeah, I mean, so this is complicated because it sort of runs up against limitations of our use of language, right? And like, what do people mean by this? And often when you're talking with somebody who is extremely religious, who's telling you these things, they have a very different meaning than what we might say, what a secular person, a non-religious person might mean when they say having faith. I think you can have faith. We can have faith in someone or something based on previous experience, based on our hopes, based on our aspirations. But that's not necessarily faith in the way that they mean it. I think that it's completely appropriate for us to talk about our hopes, the optimism that we have that something positive will happen, but then also recognizing that takes action on our part often to make that happen. That it isn't going to happen because there's any sort of cosmic justice in the world or anything like that, but rather we can make our own opportunities, we can sort of make our own luck, as it were, and have that ability to do that, which is different than just this abstract notion of, well, have faith that everything will work out. Well, I don't think that's a useful thing to say, except as an empty platitude. I think what's better to say is something along the lines of, you can count on me, or I've got your back. What can I do to help? And we together will make this better. You're going to get through it because I'm here for you is better than you'll get through it, have faith, right? Like there has to be some sort of action embedded in that rather than just a empty platitude of faith. That's kind of how I always interpret it. But
yeah, so I need to separate the word faith from religion towards more of a moving forward thing. Yeah.
I think that's how I approach it when I'm talking with people that I know are religious and are hopefully the kind of person that isn't using that as a weapon. There are people who will often do that where they know that you're an atheist and they aren't, and they will sort of use that as an entry point of like, well, have faith, God will take care of it. And when that happens, when things work out for the best, then you better be coming back to church, young man, right? Like that sort of thing, that like manipulative language around it that I don't have any patience for. Like that's not what I want in my life. That's not the sort of person I want in my life. But the people that I care about, who care about me, who say it's going to work out, there's like an embedded idea in there of because we're in this together and because I've got your back and I'm here for you, right? That's what we're talking about. That's the sort of, again, imperfect language around faith or hope or optimism that I take away from that. But these people better than I do, and so that's often how I think about it, though.
Daz, I muted you just because we're getting a lot of background noise. Like if you're standing out somewhere where it's windy, I just want to give my thoughts real quick, and then I'll unmute you, and we can continue from there. I'm with Nick and was going to say something very similar, in that sometimes when people say you just have to have faith, all they really mean is you just got to push through. You just got to, do things as if you have confidence that they will work out. They're not actually appealing to, a deity. And then there's others that are like, you just need to have faith that God has it. But that may not even be that different. You need to have faith and persevere. When I think about faith is the excuse people give for believing things when they don't have a good reason. And if somebody's advocating believing something when they don't have a good reason, I push back on that. If I tend to not use the word faith, even in the colloquial sense of, you just got to have faith or anything like that, I tend to avoid it to avoid any confusion about what I'm saying. And, so that there's not an audio clip out there, me saying, faith's a good thing. If you're using it as a foundation of epistemology, a justification to believe something, then faith is, in my view, awful, because there's no position that you couldn't believe based on faith. You could, I believe I'm smarter than you based on faith. I believe I'm better than you based on faith. I believe that, any number of things. I'm not, as a skeptic, I can't advocate for faith-based positions. But if the people who are talking to you are just saying, hey, I know things look bad now, but you just got to have faith and kind of soldier through. If they're not suggesting that you need to put your faith in a particular religion, religious doctrine, or individual, if they're not asking you to believe something without evidence, then I would take it more as a colloquialism of kind of, they're trying to be encouraging. It's like sometimes when people hear about bad things that are happening to you, they'll say, oh, I'll pray for you. The people who say that, some of them are extremely religious and they're going to actually go pray, and they think that that's the best thing they can do. But even in that circumstance, they're trying to be as nice as they can and be supportive. Most people who, in my opinion, I don't have data, but I would say that most people who are like, oh, I'll pray for you, don't mean it in that sense. It's just that when bad things are happening to people, we don't have good things to say. Oh, I hope that works out. I hope. And it's one of the reasons why people are constantly pointing out that their religion provides hope where nothing else can. And the reality is their religion is not providing hope. Their religion is providing false hope, or the approximation of hope. Because until there's a reason to think that it will actually work out, until there's a reason to think that a God could intervene, then the hope they're giving you is false. And really all we're doing is we're looking at people who are genuinely trying to be kind and compassionate and empathetic towards people, but they've had their mind polluted by religious language and kind of sophistry. So it's really difficult, which is, we're back to what Nick said at the beginning, the complications of language. You got to kind of talk to the people who are advocating faith and figure out what is their goal, what is their intent. Are they just trying to be kind, or are they trying to push a religion?
Matt, everything you just said makes a hell of a lot of sense. And thank you for your words. Yeah, now I get what they're trying to push on me and what I should be doing with have faith, move forward instead of move forward towards us. Thank you, Matt. Thank you very much for what you just said. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Cheers. Thanks, Des. Hope that works out, and let us know how it works out when you talk to him. I appreciate that. When something else tied to the convention, we're getting ready to get another caller in. Another state director has called in because, we love our state directors. But I remember when I first started participating with the atheist community, and I got involved with my local atheist community here in Austin. And right off the bat, Jeff D and some others warned me. They're like, oh, don't do too much. You're going to burn out. Don't do too much. You're going to burn out. For whatever reason, while that has been true for almost everybody that I've worked with over the last 20 years, it has not happened for me. And I get it. I'm the weird one. Not everybody has, I don't even want to trying to come up with, not everybody is as freaking weird as I am to be willing to do multiple call-in shows every week for 19 years. That's just not, I'm the weird one. I got it. But some of the things that I watched my fellow atheists warn others about came true in general terms, but didn't come true for everybody. And not just the don't burn out. It's, oh, you found your way to religion. You're now in the angry atheist phase. And then when you get done with that, then you'll hit this other phase and this other phase. Don't get me wrong. I think that there are phases that we all go through at different times. But as I showed, last Sunday doing the show in Zen mode, I think that you can be angry, and justifiably so, forever as an atheist, because you're stuck in a world where everything's Weird. Hang on. Why did it take me so long to figure this out? And why is it taking everybody else so long to figure out? And why does it feel like we're going backwards? And so there's an incredible amount of frustration there. But watching people figure out new ways to interact with religious people. And the key thing that I was getting to is we can't put everyone who's religious in one bucket. It's not a bucket of stupid. It's not a bucket of evil. It's not a bucket of hateful. There are people who are just as much well-intentioned, wonderful people who are as much a victim of the ideology as anybody else is, as you were, as I was, as you know, to say, I was convinced of things that I didn't have good reason for, but I wasn't trying to do harm. It's not like Democrats want to make the world better and Republicans want to make it worse. There's a fundamental difference in what we view as a better world. And the same thing is true for people of different religions and within atheism. Watching people learn better ways of dealing with those things. One of the key things I got out of all those conventions was listening to people talk about tell their stories of how they got from A to B, what they found worked for them, and in some cases, disagreeing with them vehemently on how things ought to be done, only to have both of us kind of merge towards some sort of compromise on, okay, I'll go that far, but not that far. When you first got involved, how much of it was just like cathartic being around people that shared your ideology and your mindset, and how much of it was mission at that time, and where did that merger come?
Yeah. So I never was religious. I didn't grow up with that. And so that's, a unique part of my experience, but it's also something that is, I think, becoming increasingly common among folks in my generation. I think that the technical term is a geriatric millennial, which is makes me want to fall into a heap of dust right now, but that's fine. But for, folks who are millennials and Gen Z and so on, more and more people are being raised without religion and don't have that experience of, believing in something and then walking away from it. Giving up something, even if it's something that's flawed tremendously and extremely imperfect, leaving behind a community or, jeopardizing family relationships or whatever it might be. A lot of us never had that, so we're not walking away from that. But I think you're right that people have this view that there's like this linear progression from sort of like questioning to epiphany to angry atheist to slightly chilled out activist atheist to apatheist, whatever, no big deal, you do your own thing. That's not true. Like this is not, that's not everyone's experience. And I tell people all the time that, people have every right to be tremendously angry about the way that religion has really jeopardized our rights, the way that certain religions have treated us, the way that religion has been weaponized against us in the United States. The reason I got involved in this in the first place was entirely mission driven because I was looking around at the issues I cared about, my own rights being taken away in the 2004 election of, well, we're going to go ahead and weaponize religion to, say that, gay people can't get married. And we're going to use that as a cynical political ploy. That was the first election I could vote in. And that was a great first experience of, losing the election to protect your own rights. Like that's great. But then looking around and after working in the 2008 election and seeing how every single thing that I cared deeply about, the other side was justifying their reasons, not on policy grounds, not on reason, not on science, not on evidence, but it was, here's what God wants us to do. And that's it. Right. And there can be no compromise when God is giving you directives, right? Like there is no compromise there. And so it shut down every conversation. It's not the way to do policymaking. And that common thread encouraged me to get involved because I cared deeply about all these issues. So that was my sort of entry point into this. And I will be the first to admit that it's the sort of thing that, is my own bias in the way that I approach things is thinking about things from a policy angle. I didn't grow up with that type of community, and so it never was that important to me. And in fact, for me, as a professional who works in this community, who's been working in this community for 15 years now, it's challenging for me to find community in atheist groups, in secular humanist groups, or so on, because I can't sort of disconnect. Like it's not it's work still, right? And part of finding community and being able to relax is being able to not be talking about work all the time. And I don't blame folks for wanting to chat and talk about, oh, here's what's going on in our community, here's what's going on in our state, here's a problem I'm running into. Like, I get it, but I need to have a little bit of space as well to not burn out, to not to have that personal work life balance. Otherwise, I'm going to be running into problems and so on. So that's sort of
the cathartic element where I was saying we both come together, because I come from a religious background, you don't, was. Yeah. And this is kind of what I was leading up to, is when you got involved, did you feel as an atheist maybe I'm misrepresenting this, as an atheist in a largely Christian dominated world, did you feel sidelined, marginalized, where you didn't have people to interact with and the conventions provided that? Or, and this is the scary thing that I thought of while I was trying to formulate this, and I think it's obvious what the answer is, but I could be wrong. Wouldn't it be more oppressive now? Like, if you hadn't got involved with American Atheist and had just continued living your life as an atheist, not affiliated with, the activism part of the community, do you think you would feel more sidelined and oppressed today than you did when you first got involved? And if not, what's changed? And if so, does that mean we're losing?
No, I mean, I'm going to borrow from our previous caller here. I have a lot of hope at the direction that certain things have gone, because I see sort of the internal workings of these conversations that are happening behind the scenes and sometimes in public. I'll give an example. Think about what happened in the wake of the March for Our Lives activism, the activism that was happening around gun control and, reasonable, responsible restrictions on these types of firearms and whatnot. That there came this group of people who mobilized one of the most stunning, most effective political organizing campaigns, messaging campaigns around the active repudiation of thoughts and prayers. People saying straight up, elected officials saying these prayers are worthless. Saying that right up front, people, that we don't need your prayers mean nothing to us, we want action, right? I can't for the life of me imagine that would have been even an option, or that would have been the sort of thing that would have happened 20 years ago when I sort of first started getting involved in politics. That active repudiation of prayer would be something that would be mainstreamed. That we've made tremendous strides in just a really short amount of time, that change is really accelerating. I mean, you think back to the founding of American Atheist 60 years ago, and the Supreme Court cases that brought it about. The cases that we're talking about then were mandatory Bible readings and mandatory recitation of prayers in public schools. And even the sort of worst case scenario, which is not good, but of just hanging up the 10 Commandments, like that's shit and we shouldn't do that. But no one is talking about forcing anyone to pray. And so even the regressive, horrible things that they're pushing on that front, they're not going back to something that people who are alive today experienced in school. One of the people who's going to be speaking at our conference is Ellery Shemp. He's going to be speaking at the awards dinner. Ellery is the guy who was Abington v. Shemp, the Supreme Court case that Murray v. Curlett that got Bible readings and mandatory prayers out of the public schools. He's the guy. He's the one who was there for that. And he's going to be talking about that history and what he sees positively, the progress that we've made and the direction that we're going. He's going to be talking about that at our awards dinner. And we're really, really fortunate to have him, because I think he's 85, 84, something like that now. And he straight up said to us, it's unlikely that I'm going to have a ton more of these that I can attend. So the fact that we're having one in his hometown, so to speak, is a great opportunity for us. But being involved, hearing from people who care very deeply about a secular, pluralistic democracy and want to make sure that people of all faiths and none, especially the quarter of us, third of us who are non-religious, are able to get involved. Like, there are people who care very deeply about that and are committed to that, people who are themselves religious. And we've raised the issue to such a degree now that it's no longer news when atheists come to town, which is, in some ways challenging, right? It requires us to rethink our tactics, to rethink our approaches. That's why American Atheists went through this really long process looking at strategy and how we're going to approach the next 60 years of our work. Because the things that worked in 1965 with Madalyn Murray O'Hair, or the things that worked 15 years ago for my predecessor, just don't work anymore. Because it's no longer front page news that atheists have a conference or that a bunch of atheists exist, right? What's front page news is white Christian nationalism threatening our democracy. And even that, unfortunately, is sort of becoming banal and boring at this point, which is horrifying. And, we can't let that sort of slide into just normalcy. We need to continue calling that out and highlighting how abhorrent and out of step with the values of the overwhelming majority of Americans that is. But the simple idea of being an atheist is no longer the holy cow, I never even considered that for most of the country. But it still is for some. And I don't ever want to discount the experience that people have, especially in rural South, highly religious communities. We did a big survey about this. People still experience that level of discrimination and stigma at all levels of their existence, at all levels of their lives. In too many parts of this country. So we can't pretend that this is fixed, but we also shouldn't pretend for a moment that things aren't better on average than they were certainly 60 years ago, and 40 years ago or 20 years ago. So the threats are different. They're still out there. But it's a different set of threats.
So we had a theist caller that I was getting ready to get to, and then they dropped. I think they're coming back, but in the meantime, Samuel, who is calling from Virginia, is a Virginia Assistant State Director, wanted to talk about the convention. So, Samuel, you're on with myself and Nick. How are you?
Doing great. Appreciate you guys having me on.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on the AA convention?
So I had a couple thoughts, and one, I think my overall feelings that were the strongest about the convention, because the first convention I attended actually was last year. I've worked with American Atheists for 4 or 5 years at this point, but last year was the first convention I was able to go to because of COVID.
Sure.
And I was really blown away. I actually brought my partner, who'd never been to an atheist meeting or meetup before, and I was really curious how she would feel, because I help run and attend local meetups fairly frequently, and bringing her into not only, an atheist-friendly space, but, the national convention was huge. And both of us felt, very much at home. We made a ton of friends, and we learned a lot, kind of like Will was saying earlier. And one of the things that talking to people at the convention and friends that I made afterwards, and between the two of us, was we really kind of discovered how significant showing up was for me, and how much it's meant to other people just to be kind of out as an atheist and to be available for them to, kind of talk to and commune with.
How'd your partner, I mean, as the first time she'd been involved with any of that, was her experience the same as yours? Was it, surprising or cathartic, or?
I think cathartic is a great word to describe it. She expressed to me that she had a ton of fun, that she I don't know that she was necessarily surprised at how friendly and welcoming everyone was. But both of us are Black, as a disclosure, and a lot of times we are even more excluded because, you guys know better than I do that the Black community is extremely religious and can be, you get discriminated against almost to a higher level. And so being in a space that was incredibly welcoming for that one thing that, you know, we have to be careful of. Not me so much, because I generally don't care, but for her living in Maryland, it was an experience that she'd never had. And I think it really changed her outlook on how she can interact with people, especially being in atheist spaces. So it was huge for us. We had nothing but positive feelings coming out of it.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you calling in, and we're looking forward to, you know, are you guys going to get to go this year, or?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. We're about 3 hours away, so we're going to drive up together.
Nice.
Yeah, one of the other things that I know that was really significant for both of us was that they had time for the smaller groups. And I know that we are doing a similar thing this year, where we have what they call affinity rooms, but we participated in one for Black or people of color, and there were some other ones that we attended. There was a recovering from religion meeting that we attended. And every time we went to, you know, one of these meetings or got to have a conversation with someone else, we made friends. We had fantastic conversations, and these are people that, you know, I've kept up with over the years, and over the year, and she has as well. And we're excited to see all those people again.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I hope you guys have a great time. I'm sorry I'm not going to be able to be there, but we appreciate you calling in to help promote this.
Thanks so much.
Cheers.
See you soon, Sam.
All right. So we got a theist caller, despite the fact that we're just, you know, two activists going to sit around and talk about the American Atheist Convention all day. Theist callers always have a priority here. If you're also a theistic caller, feel free to call in right now. We've got open lines and everything else. But Jed in California, you're on with Matt and Nick. How are you? Hello? Jed, we're not hearing you. Let's see if I can return Jed to the queue. All right. I will let the I'll try one more time to put Jed live. Jed in California, you're on with Matt and Nick. All right. Well, I'm going to put Jed back in the queue. And if the call screener can check on Jed, he's dropped once before. And it's interesting because I think he's going to present an argument or a case that I almost never get a chance to deal with. As a reminder, once we get done with the call-in portion of the show, we'll be reading all the super chats over $10 that you guys submit. If you have questions about American Atheists, in addition to the convention, now is your prime opportunity. I went to all the trouble to drag the president of American Atheists out here, put him under fire. Ask him, hey, why haven't you guys done enough on this? What's going on here? What can we expect here? And then all that it's going to do is prompt some really good answers, and then I'll end up having, like Jeff or somebody else come on to answer all the legal questions with, well, it depends. Well, it depends. Every time I get a lawyer on it depends. It depends. All right.
It's not just the lawyers, it's those of us that hang out with lawyers too. It just becomes part of the answer. Spend too much time with lawyers. Well, it depends.
I'll give this one more try here. Jed in California, you are on with Matt and Nick. Well, this is incredibly disappointing.
Yeah, the screener said he couldn't even hear him when he brought him into the screening room, so I'm not exactly sure what's going on. Caller, if you can hear us, please hang up and call back again, or check to see if you've muted with your face. That's a really common thing people do. But yep, we'll have to let him go for now and try again.
Although this one's a web call, so not a cell phone call. So.
Oh yeah, that's true. It could be a result of the web call.
You mute yourself on a web call with your face. I think you might be computering incorrectly, but that might just be me.
Could be. All right. We're going to let you go, Jed. If you can get your audio things sorted out, please call back and we'll try and have a good call. It was an attempt to justify scientifically a philosophical view related to spirituality called perennialism, which I'm happy to try and sorry, I'm looking at the thing here. All right.
If I can butt in, just because I see we have open lines, so if anyone is watching, please do call in 720-619-2288. I sent out a poll earlier asking how much of our audience had gone to an atheist convention thus far, and it was 95% had not, only 4% had, but in the current poll running, if they would want to go to a convention, over 88% are saying yes, so hopefully we can mobilize some people if you are in the Philly area to go check out the AA Con.
Yeah, we'd love to have you in Philly. Like I said, and Matt has mentioned, we have a conference coming up in Minneapolis. I know that, get to Philadelphia next week is potentially a tall order, but we'd love to have you. It's a really tremendous experience. So I hope folks will take this as an opportunity to get more information and check it out.
Jed in California, have we got you back?
Yeah, my sincere apologies, Matt. You know how technology works sometimes. Go ahead.
If I knew how technology worked, I'd have no problems with it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, so in full disclosure, just so you know that our conversational background, I'm like an armchair philosopher, basically. I've got undergraduate degree and a master's degree, but I don't consider myself an academic. I don't write academic papers of that nature. But, I've read some arguments behind you, argument from consciousness. We kind of got stuck on trying to define consciousness. But I wanted to try a new argument, and this is off the fly. I'm going to try to make it logical, but you stop me if I'm passing a barrier. But we'll define terms. I'm an empiricist. I'm also... and this is, don't correct me on my pronunciation. The Latin pronunciation is cogito ergo sum. Okay, so I accept that. And, I've gone from rationalist to empiricist, then to a transcendentalist and a religious fanatic. So at this point, I have a pretty good grasp on the topics that we're talking about. So do you know what perennialism is?
My base understanding of perennialism is that it has something to do with the spiritual ideas that persist over a great period of time, lending them more credence, I think.
Yeah, you nailed it on the head. Basically, I'll paraphrase it in my own jargon. I'm going to say just, that I'm going to phrase it this way as a theist would. So I'm going to use the word for God concept has manifested in all cultures and societies throughout written history and probably before. And so my argument is, say again? Depending on your concept of God, right?
That's not technically true, but it's close enough to true. There are like the most famous example, which I pointed to many times, are the Paraha in the Amazon who have no God concept at all. But other than that, yes, most cultures have developed some kind of a God idea.
Exactly. And, I really appreciate you bringing up the Paraha because coincidentally, in my Baptist fundamentalist days, I was going to follow after Jim Elliot's shoes and go translate the Bible, in the jungle. And, I was the Walter Martin era, brainwashed into the cult theories and all this kind of stuff. And, I have studied biblical languages I was a linguistics major and engineering major. But so I guess back to the topic, right? Perennialism is, it's basically trying to synthesize all those major religions together. And you can think of it in terms of maybe Platonic forms or Jungian archetypes. And that the God, I believe, I hate to say this, and it's only for brave Christians, but your ego identity will cease to exist when you die. So bring love the best you can. That's all you can really do. you can pray. I believe that there are angels and God does hear prayers. I believe it's based on a super symmetry, synchronicity type of an idea. But I'll leave it at that. You can respond.
Well, I'm kind of wondering how we're going to make any progress, because when it comes to perennialism, first of all, I don't believe that the fact that an idea has been tenacious tells us whether or not the idea is true. And when you're talking
Right.
about trying to syncretically merge a bunch of disparate religious ideas over time, it seems to me that if you find the one common element, that common element is humans trying to understand things. And so
Correct.
it would be a mistake to conclude that because humans keep inventing gods, that this means there's some likelihood that there's a God. Instead, it means there's something we're missing that needs
Right.
some sort of panacea, and we are the type of creatures who are going to invent that. So what can we get to?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you.
I'm just wondering how we can get to a sort of perennial view that leads us to anything we could identify as true, other than humans like to tell stories. Uh-oh. I think technology has beaten Jed up again. So, Jed, while you're working on your technology, we'll go ahead and drop, and if you get back in, we'll try and finish. I'll tell you right now, my sticking points for anything related to like a perennial philosophical attempt at reconciling all these long-standing views about religion is that the one undeniable true common element is human beings, and the fact that human beings are uncomfortable with not knowing. We're prone to making stuff up. We like stories. We especially like stories that seem to tell us things about us, because we are our favorite subject. And so figuring out how and why we are the way we are is important. And in the absence of science, we're going to make up stories. The fact that there are commonalities between the stories is because the questions that we're addressing are also common. If you're trying to come up with an explanation for why something exists rather than nothing, the mere existence of something narrows the margins on what kind of explanations might suffice. There's a couple callers that got in here in the meantime. So while we're trying to potentially sort out some of Jed's tech issues, Allie is that Massachusetts, I think?
Yeah.
Hey, Allie, how are you?
I'm doing well. How about you guys?
I'm
Good.
all right. You say that you've got a teacher at your Catholic school that says God's punishing you?
So when I attend a Catholic college, they just happen to give me the best financial aid package. And I am an atheist, but I also have autism and Tourette's. And several of my professors have determined in their own way that that's God's way of punishing me for not believing in him.
So God's decided to punish you for not believing in him by giving you autism and Tourette's.
Apparently.
But you've been autistic for your whole life, and one presumes that you've also had Tourette's for your whole life, right?
Yeah. And I've only been atheist for about 2 years now.
Wow. So how cool is it that God knew so much that he knew you would become an atheist, and so he pre-punished you?
That's pretty impressive, if he's got that whole plan going.
In addition to the humorous aspect of this, the questions that I would be asking, and as annoyingly as possible, these nuns or facilitators at your Catholic university is, when is the age of accountability, and why did you have Tourette's and autism prior to the age of accountability? Number two, if someone is to be punished for being an atheist, isn't that punishment supposed to occur afterlife? Shouldn't you have all the way up till your dying day to not be punished for not believing? What is it that they're playing at here?
They also want to, because I'm attending a nursing program, as far as to say that because I don't believe in God, it must not be my calling to be a nurse, and I'll be a terrible nurse. I can't even make this up.
Well, now on that front, you may have even stronger grounds to push back, because I'd be interested in hearing what some of the nursing unions have to say about whether or not someone who's not a part of a religion can be a good nurse. Quite frankly, I think that the only way for one to be a perfect nurse would be to not have a belief in a God, unless that God is real. The fewer beliefs you have that are unwarranted, I would think would make you a better nurse.
I mean, that's the way I see it. As far as I can. When I started attending the school, I was certainly not Catholic, but I was atheist, and my partner, who I met at this school, is also an atheist and kind of walked me out of the dark. So now it's kind of amusing to look back at some of these professors and ask, like, what the fuck are you guys on?
Yeah, I think my only advice for you, Allie, because it's very clear. I appreciate you calling, and if Nick's got something to add, he can definitely add it. You've got this handled. I can tell just from the way you're speaking, you've got it all covered. And the best advice I could give you is go be the best nurse you can, and then rub it in their face afterwards. When they have to come into the hospital and you're there to take care of them, and be, oh, I'm so sorry that you got the terrible nurse who's, just me, but you're gonna do great.
Yeah, I would add in there, just, my experience, our experience in the policy realm, and working with a lot of nurses, and speaking with nurses and doctors who work within the Catholic health system or work within, other religious health systems, is just to be sort of vigilant about, if you have, to the extent that you have a choice of where you end up working. I know that it's incredibly hard out there to find a job, to, find some place that is where you want to be and pays well, and, too many health systems treat nurses like crap, and it's horrible. But there's the consolidation of the healthcare system around religious providers and religious networks is a really dangerous thing, not just for patients, but also for the people that are actually doing the work. I think we're not far away from a religious hospital or a Catholic network saying essentially what those people told you, that being a nurse is an inherently religious position, because we're called to be healthcare providers. We're called to treat the sick. And therefore we don't have to follow certain rules that we don't want to follow. Right. And that can be anything related to employment discrimination, but that can be things like, oh, we don't want to inform our patients that we don't provide certain services. We don't want to inform them that we've had certain complaints because we're religious, and, therefore we don't have to do that. I think that this Supreme Court is, willing to kind of make those fallacious logical leaps to that area. And so to whatever extent you can, identify a place that doesn't put religion ahead of the care of patients. And I know that's asking a lot in a country where, 1 in 4 hospital beds is controlled by a religious entity. Or in rural areas where consolidation means that the only hospital within 100 miles of your community is a religious hospital. And so if you need abortion care, or you need gender affirming care, or you need a tubal ligation because you have a history of risky pregnancies, and you're out of luck, because that is the only place around that is, within driving distance of your house. That's not any way to run a healthcare system, and that's not any way to ensure that people have access to the treatment that they need and the care that they need. And so, I know that's not always practical for people, and I'm incredibly grateful for the folks like yourself that are, your story is not uncommon, where there are people who are in these religious healthcare systems that do not share that faith, and are being forced to compromise patient care in the name of a religion that is not their own, by a bunch of, dudes in weird costumes who, have no history of needing to provide any sort of treatment, and screw them. And that's, saying that's easy for me, who, I'm not carrying medical school debt or nursing school debt to like have to deal with. But, it's tough. And so the people like yourself that are out there providing that care, and, we're seeing it right now in Texas, for example, story after story where the state is now imposing a narrow religious view on people's medical treatment, where nurses are at the front line saying, listen, I can't tell you to go out the door, get on a plane, and go to Colorado to get the abortion care that you need. But whoops, I just mentioned it. How strange. Sorry about that. So, I know it's tough. I know that often these hospitals and networks put you in an impossible situation. So I appreciate very much the work that you do in the difficult situation that you have to be in. And I'm grateful for the call, and I appreciate you going into this work. It's vital and needed. So thank you for that.
Thankfully, I live in Massachusetts. We're a pretty blue state, so we still have access to a lot of resources that a lot of some of the other states that I'm watching go by on the news definitely don't have access to. But it can be really frustrating as we're brought up through this program. They have, we're paying them to teach us whatever they want to teach us. So we do have that lack of gender-affirming care knowledge, abortion. We did one of our clinical rotations at a hospital that is run by, it was a Catholic hospital, and I had to hold the hand of one of the patients I was working with because she was suffering a miscarriage, and the hospital refused to provide her an abortion because it was against their religion and they didn't perform those for her.
Yep.
I had a friend who was a caregiver at a Catholic hospital where if someone suffered a miscarriage, not only did they have a funeral for the fetus, but when the rest of the birth matter was delivered a day or so later, they had to have an additional funeral for that. Because it's run by a Catholic organization. I've mentioned many times, religions have done great work at creating universities and hospitals. Those things are both beneficial to society as a whole, but they would be more beneficial if they didn't have all of the baggage associated with those religions as well. A hospital shouldn't have any inclination as to what your religious or spiritual beliefs are, and I shouldn't care what my doctor's is or anybody else's until such time as it impacts the actual care I'm going to receive. And that shouldn't happen in a properly secular society. But, well, I think we lost Allie there. I heard a strange sound, but we have Jed back, so we can see if we can get Jed back in here to kind of wrap up this scientific argument for perennialism. So where did we leave off, Jed? Are you there? I think the answer is, Jed, I don't know what technology you're using. I do see that you're calling us through the web interface. You're either going to, and don't bother trying to get back through tonight, because I'm not going to have time to continue that. I don't know what's going on with the technology on your end, man. But you can either call a phone or you can try back another time on another show. But that's like 4 or 5 attempts to get Jed back. I'm so sorry that happened. It'd be interesting, but I really think, and you can take this however you want, Jed, or anybody else who's a fan of kind of perennial philosophy, is I don't know how anybody can make the case that an idea that has persisted for a long time is likely to be true. I certainly think that ideas that persist for a great deal of time, it might be reasonable to conclude that they have been more effective or more appealing. But is that appeal because they're more likely to be true, or is that appeal because they're providing something or have traditionally provided something that we're lacking, or given the illusion of providing that? When you don't know why there's something rather than nothing, if somebody convinces you it's because that's the way God wants it, that's a great pacifier. It's just not in any way a confirmed explanation. But we do, though, have another theist caller who made it in here? Virginia. In Virginia, Bronze Ashir wants to talk to us about. Well, I don't know. Hey, Virginia, you're on with Nick and Matt.
Hello. Good evening.
How you doing?
I'm great. This is my first time tuning in. I was recommended the show by a friend of mine online, and so I just wanted to jump on and talk to you guys. So from what I gathered, both of you are atheists, and
Yes.
so I wanted to know, like, why are you guys atheists? What made you want to do that?
Well, Nick's always been an atheist, and I was a fundamentalist Southern Baptist who was studying to be a preacher when I found out that I didn't have any good reason to believe that the philosophical arguments were flawed or lacking evidential support. And until such time as somebody can present a case supported by evidence for why someone should in fact believe that a God exists, I can't.
Yeah, and I'll jump in on
Okay.
that and say that for me, it wasn't sort of a question of like, oh, I wasn't actually raised as an atheist. It was just that religion was not an important part of my experience growing up, although kind of like ancillary, secondary religious stuff. Like I was in the Boy Scouts. I was very involved in that. I studied, or I went to a number of my friends' sort of churches, like you do when you're a, 13, 14-year-old kid and you want to just like hang out with your friends. And hey, they do this fun thing for youth during the week, and it's a great place to hang out with people your own age. And so you go do that. So it wasn't that I wasn't exposed to it. The thing, the framing of your question of like, why did we choose to do that? I think we need to like flip that around a little bit. A lot of people are religious because they were raised in religion. And people should ask themselves, like Matt was just saying, why do you believe this? And until you can answer that question in a way that, shows a lot of convincing evidence that convinces you to believe something that's, pretty extraordinary. And until you can have some good reasons behind that, I think folks should ask themselves, wait, why do I believe this thing? And so what we're advocating is not, necessarily a saying I believe there are no gods as much as I'm unconvinced. And, maybe in my certain spicier days, I will say I will make the claim that there is no God. But I think that ultimately it kind of boils down to I'm unconvinced. You can show me some good evidence, then sure, but haven't been shown that evidence yet. And so I live my life in this way because I have all these values that I care about as a humanist and that I've arrived at in a secular way because I've looked at a lot of other religious approaches, a lot of philosophical approaches to morality, to ethics, and that's fine, and those work for me. And like Matt said, we don't want to drop all religious people into this bucket and say, oh, all those people who believe they're dumb or whatever. That's not the case. And in fact, some of our closest partners, the people we rely on, are religious because we recognize that the threats that we deal with here in the U.S. That are coming from Christian nationalism require religious people to push back on and say, wait, I don't want my faith to be used in this way. And then we can have the conversation over drinks later. That's sort of the, hey, have you guys given some thought as to why your faith is so commonly misused in this way? Maybe we should grapple with that a little bit. But we can have that conversation sort of separately from the, oh my God, our democracy is on fire conversation, and we need to do something about that. So there's we can do both. We can walk and chew gum on those. So.
Okay, that's interesting. And so, Nick, you're the one who was raised Southern Baptist, you said? Or am I getting you guys backwards?
No, that's me. Matt.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so, Matt, you were raised Southern Baptist. Now, that's kind of funny because I'm the opposite. So I was raised in the Christian faith. That's the perspective that I'm coming from, is Christianity.
Sure.
But I was raised non-denom, but as I've gotten older, I've now become very fundamental, independent fundamental Baptist. And so I find it very interesting that that's where you started off, but you decided to change because you felt like there wasn't enough evidence to back up that belief system, while I've come to the exact opposite conclusion. And so what was it about Christianity for being a fundamental?
Well, I can't believe the supernatural claims of the Bible because I haven't seen evidence, and you're saying you came to the exact opposite conclusion. So what evidence do you have that the supernatural claims of the Bible are correct?
So when it comes to my belief, I believe that you can be a Christian and not necessarily hang on every single word of the Bible. Now I believe every word of the Bible. But when it comes to being a Christian, it's a matter of believing on Christ. The gospel is separate from the entire Bible.
That's not only not an answer to my question. It's not only not an answer to my question. It completely avoids what you claimed. I don't believe because I haven't seen evidence. And you said you've gone the exact opposite way. So all I asked is, what's the evidence? And then you started saying how you think you can be a Christian without hanging on every word. I'm aware that there's many different ways for people to think they're a Christian. I don't get to decide who's a Christian. I don't think anybody else gets to decide it. There's over 1,000 denominations and they disagree on every single point of doctrine. You said you had evidence, and I just want to know what the evidence is.
Okay. So to be more direct, I believe that the best evidence for Christianity being legitimate is the history that we have of the Bible and the history that we have of the flood. And the evidence for those two things are the most strong proofs for Christianity.
Okay. So first of all, there isn't good scientific evidence of a global flood. That simply didn't happen, and there's been no demonstration that it's possible or that it did happen. But let's just assume for a second that we could absolutely confirm there was a global flood. How does that confirm Christianity at all?
Well, because Christianity, the Bible teaches that, and not only does it teach that in Genesis, but in the New Testament, it says that in the latter days that men would be scoffers and they would be willingly ignorant of one of the main things being the flood, and that is backed up by what is happening currently. And so not only does the Bible give the story...
If I say that people are going to make fun of me for believing nonsense, and they make fun of me for believing nonsense, that doesn't prove what I believe was true.
Well, if you predicted it several thousand years in advance, and there were other things that could be made fun of.
No. And that's not a prediction. That's not even a remarkable prediction, especially since the Bible was written while people were already scoffing at this. So there isn't scientific evidence to confirm a global flood. But what I was asking was, even if we granted that a global flood occurred, how does that demonstrate the truth of Christianity? Because I don't see how a global flood can in any way demonstrate the truth that God came down, impregnated a virgin in order to give himself human form so that he could sacrifice himself to serve as a loophole for rules that he's in charge of. Where's the evidence that any of that actually happened? Because even if a global flood occurred, or even if a local flood occurred, which is Epic of Gilgamesh, and it's what others have advocated for. Not everybody believes that the flood was covering the whole earth. But even if we had just a local flood, none of that proves Christianity.
Well, that's what I was saying earlier. You were kind of accusing me of beating around the bush, but I was trying to say that you can be a Christian and not necessarily believe everything. And so you can be a Christian and believe
so you're back to not presenting the evidence. See, I can't believe unless there's evidence, and I can't believe unless there's evidence, and you can't present evidence.
Well, I said another thing that I believe in is that the history of the Bible, and so the Bible, the clear history that we have.
I'm well aware of the history of the Bible.
Words,
we have.
Are you?
Do you know who wrote? Oh yeah. Do you know who wrote Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John? No, you don't, because they're all anonymous, and we don't have originals of any of them. And we have copies of translation. They are anonymous. None of those are signed. If you think that the Gospels are signed and that we have originals, you are not in keeping with even the best New Testament scholars within Christianity.
No, of course we don't have the originals, but we don't need the originals because we have copies, and God preserved the copies like He said He would.
You don't get to say that God preserved the copy. You have to prove that God preserved the copy, and without the original, which you don't have, what you have is a copy of a translation of a copy, and nothing about that shows that it's true. So like if you if you open up, well, if you open up like I've got an NIV right here, which I could open up to Matthew.
Well, that's a
and
fake Bible.
What does it say
so,
about? Sorry, what's that?
I said that's a fake Bible. You got to have a real Bible.
Oh, okay. So you're not real. Somebody had you call in to be a prank caller.
No,
So
I'm
you,
genuine.
so you think
I'm
you think that you're AV 1611 only. So you're only going to go with a flawed translation that was created by a king in order to justify his divorces.
Now that's a myth. See, you're perpetuating
It's not a myth. It's a
about the King
fact,
James
but
Bible.
it's not a myth. I have more evidence for that than you have for anything that you've uttered yet today. How do you demonstrate that the King James Version AV 1611 is the right one and the NIV is the fake one? But I wasn't even pointing, by the way, to the fake NIV. I was pointing to the cover sheet that's in the NIV that talks about the authorship of the Gospel of Matthew. The Gospel of Matthew's author is unknown, as is the Gospel of Mark and Luke. They are unsigned. This is, you can go to New Testament, you can go to earlychristianwritings.com. You can go to any book on the process of canonization, and any book, you can go to the damn Wikipedia article for each of those Gospels, and it will affirm what I'm telling you, which is that those things were attributed to Matthew, Mark, and Luke, and John as a matter of church tradition. And even if they were all written by the person whose name on them, we don't know what the originals said, and we have no way of showing that what they say, what they claim, is true. When you say that you believe because of evidence, I keep asking for evidence, and you keep avoiding it. Where's the evidence that the Gospel of Matthew, where's the evidence, where I keep cutting you off because you keep deflecting and saying, well, here's something else I believe. Here's something else I believe. I can believe you can be a Christian this. Where's the evidence that what the Gospel of Matthew claims in your AV 1611 Bible is true? Where's the evidence for that?
Okay. The evidence for that is the fact that the whole Bible was written over the course of over 1,500 years. And even in your perspective of saying that, oh, we can't know it's true because we don't have the originals, it still lines up with itself. It was written by over 40 different authors over 3 continents over the course of 1,500 years. And what we have today still matches up with each other. The Old Testament matches up with the New Testament. It all lines up perfectly. There are no contradictions in it. And so that backs up what God said in Isaiah, where he said that I will preserve every word.
First of all, I asked what the evidence was that the Gospel of Matthew, in your particular one, is true in what it claims. The fact that books are consistent with each other in broad strokes doesn't mean that any specific claim. Where's the proof that zombies rose up and marched on Jerusalem, as the Gospel of Matthew says? Where's the proof that that happened?
Well, I don't have proof of that happening.
And yet you believe it,
every single claim in the Bible.
Do you have proof of any specific? Do you have no? Do you have proof? Do you have proof of any specific claim in the Bible?
Well, define proof.
Can you demonstrate independently verifiable, objective, empirical evidence to confirm any claim in the Bible?
Yeah, I mean, we have very good evidence for the fact that Jesus died and rose again.
No, you don't even have evidence that Jesus lived, let alone that he died and rose again.
This is disingenuous, because to say that Jesus never existed,
it's not disingenuous.
Is just an unfair statement.
It's not disingenuous. I'm sorry that you are ignorant of the scholarship. I'm not saying that Jesus didn't exist. I'm saying, how can you prove that he did?
Because the claims were made during the time when they could have been falsified, and they were not. And he was a
the claims could not have been. The claims could not have been falsified, and you have no way of saying when the claims were made, because no first century individual outside of the Gospels speaks about Jesus at all. Nobody seems to know about his life, his ministry. Nobody seems to know about the temple veil. Nobody seems to hear about the zombies marching on Jerusalem. None of that is supported by any first century historian at all. That doesn't mean Jesus didn't exist. But I'm saying, give me a claim for which you have objectively verifiable empirical evidence to support that the claim is true. What's the claim?
The objective verifiable proof is the fact that it says it and it could have been falsified if it weren't true.
No, I'm sorry. The Bible is the claim. It is not the evidence.
It is the evidence, because to say that
it's not. It's not. It is not the
It
evidence.
is. You gotta
You simply don't understand what the fuck evidence is if you think the claim
No.
is the evidence. The Bible
Well,
is the
see,
claim.
the thing is,
The Bible is where it says this happens. And if you have evidence that it happened, you present the evidence. You don't present yet another claim. What is the evidence that your claim is correct?
if you would let me finish, then I could explain. Do you want me to explain?
I have given you, stop talking. I have given you multiple opportunities, and all you do is whine about how I'm cutting you off. Present a claim. Present a claim. Present a claim.
The Bible
keep talking over me and see how well that's going to fucking work out for you.
What the Bible says.
Guess how much anybody's going to get to hear you if you keep fucking interrupting me. Present a claim.
You claim that
it's my fucking show, dumbass. Present a claim and then present the objective. Okay, I'm going to mute you since you can't fucking listen because your brain is desperately trying to protect you from being embarrassed on live TV. But it's too late. You have been. I would like you to make one claim about something that's supernatural that happened and the objectively verifiable evidence that supports that claim. That's all I'm asking. I'm going to unmute you. You tell me what supernatural claim you're going to defend, and then you present the objectively verifiable evidence to support that claim, or we're done. What's the claim?
What he's not going to do is that.
The claim.
What he's not going to do is that. The claim is my wife's name is.
I know what your wife's name is. It shows up on the screen. I didn't call her anything other than a name, than her actual name there. I would like to know what claim she's saying and what the actual verifiable objective evidence for it is. That's all I want. Am I going to talk to Virginia or the backup dancer?
How do I leave?
What's that? Oh, you run away. Okay. Did I cut you off that time? I'm sorry that you don't know what evidence is, but the book is not the claim. The book is not the evidence. The book is the claim. When the book says something like Jesus fed thousands of people with 5 loaves and 3 fishes or 7 loaves, by the way, contradictions. They do exist. They don't exist at the rate that you seem to think that they don't exist. But I'm sorry that you are both monumentally ignorant of the facts around this, but I've been dealing with this for decades now. And when you say that you have evidence of supernatural claims, and every time I ask, you're like, well, another thing I believe is, well, you're not letting me finish. Well, you don't have to hang on every word of the Bible. Why not? Why don't you have to hang on? Oh, you say you do hang on every word of the Bible, but you don't have to. I didn't ask if you had to. But you do. I guess we're going to move on since you cowardly ran away after bringing in your backup dancer yet again. This ain't my first go round. But you want to know why I'm an atheist? I'm an atheist because of people like you. People like you who are monumentally cocksure about things and you think you have evidence when you don't. People like you who think that the NIV is a fake Bible, but your King James AV 1611 version is the real Bible, despite the fact that it's written in English, so it can't be the real Bible. It must, by definition, be a copy of a translation of a copy of a copy of a translation of a copy of a copy of an oral tradition that was passed down. I'll bet you $1,000 neither you nor your backup dancer can read through it in the original Greek or Aramaic or Hebrew that I tend to study it in, and I'm not even an expert. I'm a newbie at that stuff. But anybody who thinks that there's exactly one version and the AV 1611 version is the one is already at a level of gullibility and having been duped by nonsense that they are demonstrating with their very words. They don't understand the nature of evidence. They don't understand the burden of proof. They don't understand what should be compelling. I'm an atheist because people like you are out there advocating things that you cannot demonstrate, that you do not have evidence for. You're out there trying to claim a higher moral superiority, of this. You have your tune, your dial tuned to God, and the rest of us just don't. But when it comes to evidence, you fail. Epic fail. Embarrassing epic fail. And so to your buddy in chat who was like, be nice, I was nice. But when I'm asking for evidence, when I'm told that I searched for evidence and failed, but they searched for evidence and found it, and then they never present any evidence, you're a waste of my motherfucking time when it comes to these discussions, because you don't understand evidence. You don't understand anything about what should confirm which version of a Bible is actually telling a true story. All right. So we got a couple of quick atheist calls that we can get through here, and we'll wrap all this up and move on to super chats. Sorry we didn't get a better theistic caller, Nick.
That's all right. I mean, I think the idea of like, oh, that's a fake Bible was probably the funniest thing I've heard in the last week. So I appreciate the good belly laugh there. That's good. Yeah, it's a fake Bible.
What's funny is this is one of 5 Bibles that are within my arm reach. I just happened to grab the NIV first because I know the cover sheet for the book of Gospel of Matthew in the NIV goes further than this teen Bible does, which is right here. This is the Extreme Teen Bible. That's my ex-wife's that I still got. Then there's my King James 1611, my Schofield King James with Concordance. Then I have this one. This is a really good one. This one I recommend to people. It's a printed copy of the Skeptic's Annotated Bible, which you can read entirely online if you want to. But if you actually wanted a physical copy, by the way, countless, well, I mean, I suppose you could count them, tons of contradictions highlighted in here. I don't think all of them are contradictions. As a matter of fact, I spend a great deal of time, Virginia, and backup dancer, I spend a great deal of time correcting other atheists who are trying to present bad contradictions and bad arguments against the Bible, because I got here by trying to be the best Christian I could be. But if you're actually a skeptic, if you actually value the nature of evidence, if you actually value making sure that you are not being duped, it's very difficult to maintain Christianity in the way Virginia and her backup dancer do, than if you're trying to maintain skepticism. Anyway, Hayden in Arizona, she, her, welcome to the show.
Hi. And I'm so sorry. I started, I got on YouTube on my way home and I saw that you guys were live. And I got excited because I wanted to ask you a question, Matt, that I didn't even get the other host name. So I'm so sorry. What is
Nick
the other
Fish.
host name?
It's Nick Fish,
okay.
the president of American Atheists.
Okay. All right. Well, I was like, I don't want to be rude and it only be targeted towards Matt, but.
Nope, go ahead. Are you still there? Are you still there? Oh my, did we lose Hayden? I'm going to put Hayden back in the queue just in case there's a tech issue that she can sort out or whatever else. And we'll take Sam in Georgia. Thanks for waiting.
Hey, can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
All right, because I have my earbud in. I don't know if that was good or not. Anyway. So yeah, I know that a couple of days ago, a couple weeks ago, years ago, whatever, you were talking about how you were thinking that Trump's going to win again this election cycle. And I was wondering why you hold that opinion.
Because I spend a great deal of time talking to Trump supporters. Wow, I'm going to mute you because wherever you are, I'm hearing airplanes. So I don't know if it's a war zone. I think right now, I hope he doesn't, but right now I'm convinced that Trump's going to win because I actually spend time talking with Trump supporters and they don't care about evidence. They don't care about the truth. I literally had a relative explain to another relative, and then it made its way to me. They can't vote for Joe Biden because he's a Catholic. That's the primary reason. Oh, and because he's a Democrat. So they're just not going to vote for a Democrat. They're not going to vote for a Catholic. they don't believe, we went over, hey, here's the various things that Trump said. This person is not of a character that, you would have normally supported. And it didn't matter. It didn't care. The guy's under indictment. They've stacked the Supreme Court. They have a plan in place, and the polls show them ridiculously close, despite the fact that one of the two, Biden, has actually somewhat improved the economy, is not a habitual liar, unlike Trump, who lied to and cheated on all of his wives. So I don't know why anybody thinks that he's going to treat any American or all Americans any better than he's treated his wives. Nobody cares. This is a cult of personality where the available evidence are that people are going to continue to vote against this because they want to stick it to the man. They don't trust the government. They don't trust politicians. They want a real, a straight shooter, straight talker. They're all idiots. We're stupid. We're filled to the brim with stupidity. There is a, what was it? Hillary called the bucket of deplorables. She was factually correct. America is full of deplorables who are going to continue to support Trump.
I think one other thing that I would add to that is relevant here is the strength of the support that Donald Trump has among evangelicals, despite his obvious sort of character flaws. The fact that he is not, he's not religious, he's not a believer, he's not one of them, quote unquote. It doesn't matter, because ultimately the point is not whether someone is in line with their beliefs, but whether that person is tough, whether that person will use the machinery of government to protect a place of privilege for white evangelical or white conservative Christians. And I think it's important, by the way, to be very specific when we're talking about, white Christians, that it's not just Christianity writ large. It's a very particular type of Christianity. It's a type of Christianity that is tied up with and very you can't unlink the racism from much of the religious component of this. That is all wrapped up together, and he will. You saw this over and over again while he was president. The idea that he will punish the right people is sort of core to the idea of Donald Trump. And there was an interview with someone, this woman whose husband was an undocumented immigrant, and her husband was arrested and deported. And she voted for Donald Trump. And she said, I didn't think that he would target my family. Why is he coming after my family? He's supposed to be going after the people who deserve it. We aren't the right people to punish. He's going after the wrong people. And I keep coming back to this idea that, we sort of lowered the bar to such an extent with Donald Trump where people don't believe the things that he says he's going to do. He says that he's going to be a first-day dictator, and you can argue that that's taken out of context, but is it? He's saying that he's going to use the presidency in completely unprecedented ways to cut out Congress to make sure that he's subject to any oversight. He's going to remake the federal bureaucracy to make it easier to fire people that get in his way, by which we mean keep up basic guardrails of government. I think that's terrifying. That's horrible. It's horrifying. And are the courts going to save us? The answer seems to be no. The courts seem to be willing to allow any of these shenanigans to carry on as long as it's for their team. And so we need to not sit by and pretend that just making the best argument is always going to win. We have to get out there and, be willing to fight. Sometimes, more so than by fight, I don't just mean vote. I mean, there's a lot out there that is really scary, and we need to, in some cases, potentially put our bodies in the line to protect the people that we love and the people who are going to be victims of this type of ideology, and be willing to do that. And I don't know quite what that's going to look like yet, but I think we have to be talking about that seriously, because they are seriously talking about the threats of violence and the use of political violence to silence people. And that's a very terrifying place to be in. I don't like that we're there, but that's where we're at.
I hope I'm wrong, Sam. I genuinely hope I'm wrong. But I sat on stage a week or so before the 2016 election and told folks in Canada, "Oh, you got nothing to worry about. There's no way in hell Trump will win," and I was wrong. I've paid attention over the last 8 years, and I've had lots of conversations, and we're dealing with just viciousness, and not just the misinformation, the strong misinformation campaigns, but like by now, I don't think there's any secret that my partner, who's the host of the Transatlantic Call-In Show, is trans, and so I'm attacked every single day, all the time, no matter what. Doesn't matter what I say on Twitter. Either, it used to be just some incredibly zealous vegans were like really had a massive hard on for me for no good reason. But now it's a constant parade. And I'm not, I can take it. I'm not whining. I'm saying the rhetoric and the hatred has been dialed up to 11. It is a campaign of misinformation constantly. It is, fuck your feelings, Trump, 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 fuck your feelings, Trump, 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 fuck your feelings, Trump, Trump, Trump. It's that non-stop. And every time they score any sort of victory, it's ha ha ha. Let's drink the blue tears and the Democrat. And anytime they lose, they stage an insurrection and storm the Capitol and break things, or they grab their tiki torches and try and stand out about how. Who was it? The governor, I think in Georgia, just signed something to prevent any diversity, inclusion, etc. Like as if that's a bad thing, all because they're afraid of of this fictional fucking white replacement theory. The United States is a racist, misinformed, ill-informed, undereducated, uneducated cesspool of hateful pieces of shit who are really mad that a black man was president, that women had the right to choose and some autonomy over their body, that the LGBTQ community is being accepted as if they're real fucking people. That is the gross, disgusting truth of America. And the only reason that I haven't left yet is because I still have some optimism about fixing it.
As you just brought up the abortion thing and the acceptance of the LGBTQ, I know those are very big topics, so I'm wondering if those could sway in the other direction, because Trump has stated that he overturned Roe v. Wade, as he likes to claim. So I'm thinking that's a really bad thing that he said. I think that's really bad for his strategy. I know that his base absolutely loves it, and don't worry. I argue with people like this all the time too. But I think a lot of single issue voters, which I'm not a fan of, but that's what people are sometimes, will just see that and go, all right, nope, not this guy. Not this guy. He's not going to get my vote.
Yeah,
I Roe might be key.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, you're seeing, we talked about this earlier, that you're seeing the horrifying side effects, or not even side effects, the effects of the reality of this ideology put into practice by passing laws now that criminalize reproductive health care. It isn't just anything related to, oh, you're having an abortion. But if you genuinely believe that, life begins at conception, and that you're going to convey those same set of rights onto fetuses, what that means in the real world is that if you have a miscarriage, that it needs to be investigated. And what that means is that a bunch of very nice upper middle class WASPy ladies who vote for Republicans, who voted in this government, are going to be subjected to criminal investigation because they had a miscarriage, and because somewhere between a third and a half of all pregnancies end in miscarriage. And is that really what they want? Well, that's what's going to happen, because that's the law that they've put in place. And there are genuine zealots who have gotten into public office who will enforce these things, but the average person who, sort of said this and didn't really think about it that much, like, oh yeah, of course, I don't really support abortion. This goes back to that sort of annoying Protestant work ethic thing of like, oh, are you really deserving of an abortion or whatever? You didn't use contraception, so that's on you, finger wag. That ideology starts to break down the moment that people see where the rubber meets the road on this. And people start to get really freaked out when, IVF, this procedure that I've paid tens of thousands of dollars to undergo, is now potentially illegal because they're shutting everything down because doctors are very risk averse. You saw how fast that Alabama changed their law or purported to change their law, despite the fact that the Supreme Court said that the Constitution of the state required them to do this, not any law, and in fact almost foreclosed the possibility that the state could pass a law allowing IVF in the state because they amended their Constitution to say that life begins at conception and every law should be interpreted under that light. And so even this law that purports to protect IVF, I don't know, who knows? And so because we are not playing in hypotheticals anymore, because we are seeing how this ideology actually gets put into practice, and because these people are such out of control weirdos who spend all their time obsessing about people's sex lives, they're going around banning pornography. You can't access Pornhub right now in the state of Texas because they're such busybodies about people's private lives. And I think people look at that and say, can you guys just stop being such weirdos? Can you stop obsessing about people's genitals? Can you stop saying that you're going to have genital exams for 16-year-old girls in public schools? Can you stop saying that you need to investigate my wife for the miscarriage that she had in the worst day of her life? Can you stop getting in between me and my IVF treatments? Can you just stop? And Trump is enabling that. And the people that are signing up with Trump now are the people that are behind that every step of the way because they're religious extremists. And they are signing up for it. They are in it to win it because they believe in power over everything else. And that's the key. It's not about necessarily the specific theology. I mean, the theology matters, but it's about power. It's about who is legitimately allowed to exercise the levers of government, who is allowed to wield the power of government. And to them, we are illegitimate. Black voters are illegitimate. To them, women voters are illegitimate. To us, a pluralistic secular democracy means that sometimes our side wins, sometimes it loses, but at the end of the day, we fight for the things we believe in and we advocate for them, and that's it. So that's the difference. And again, as the president of a 501c3, I don't endorse candidates in my official capacity, but what I encourage people to do is look at people's records and see where they stand on these issues, figure out what issues matter to you. And, it's a lot easier to try to say that you want to blow something up because it sucks versus saying, hey, here's how we build something better. And it's a lot easier to throw those grenades and to criticize and to blow up the system or say that you want to do that. But the real world implication of that is not good. And if you think that it would be good for you because you're insulated in whatever city or state, you are wrong. These things spill over, and we see it every single day in state legislatures. That's where American Atheist works on policy issues, is at the state level. We see it every single day in every single state. The extremism that starts in a place like Louisiana or Mississippi or Alabama proceeds to Oklahoma, proceeds to Missouri, and then it proceeds to Indiana, and then it's in Michigan, and then it's in swing state here in Pennsylvania. All right? It doesn't stop there. It's never going to stop there. These people use this as an example. They take over your school boards, and you're one step away from, trans people being kicked out of your public schools or teachers being fired for being LGBT or books being banned because the name of the author is gay, right? Like, this is what's happening. These people are incompetent, but it means that it doesn't mean that the things they're trying to do won't happen. It just means that they're going to cause tremendous amounts of pain and suffering along the way for everybody, not just the people they're intending to hurt. And I don't know if that makes it worse or better. I don't know. But they're going to hurt so many people in their quest for power. And I think we're seeing that every single day.
Sam, I hope that answers your question, but I want to make sure you get to chime back
Inspirational.
in here and add whatever.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much agree with pretty much everything you guys said there. I know at least Matt, you're aware of Owen Morgan a little bit. Recently,
Yeah,
he on one of his videos, he went and played a clip from a video, I think it was from back in the 50s, called "Don't Be a Sucker," and it is from the perspective of, I think, a Hungarian guy here in America, where you have an American guy here using a lot of the same talking points that the Nazis used to prop up his ideology, and then it swaps over to the Nazis, and they're doing that. And when you look at what the Nazis were saying in that video, it's like, holy crap, that's what people are saying here now about immigrants and black people and trans people and gay people.
Yep.
And it's like, it's the same freaking thing. It's like, wow, this is bonkers, man.
Yeah, it is.
It's just
and
like, how the hell did we get here?
The most difficult part for me is that there are genuinely good people. Like, set aside the fact that Virginia and her backup dancer couldn't argue their way out of a wet paper bag and don't understand the nature of evidence. I would still bet money that they are both genuinely good people who want good things. And so what ends up happening is the proponents of these overbearing fascistic ideologies, whether they're coming in a political sense or a religious sense, what they do is they instill fears. They invent fears that only they can solve. The world is going to hell in a handbasket, and it's because we allowed pornography, and it's because we allowed prostitution, and it's because we allowed the gays, and it's because we allowed gay marriage, and it's because we allowed marijuana, and it's because we allowed abortion, and it's because all of these things. If you can make your list of fearful things and say, this is why your kids aren't going to get the high-paying jobs. This is, your kid's not going to get the high-paying job because the education system is too busy teaching woke pronouns, as if fucking pronouns didn't always exist in this. Or your kids aren't going to get a good-paying job because of the immigrants. It's, let's create a bunch of fears and then convince people that we're the ones that can fix it. Because since there's not really a fucking problem, we can make it look like we fixed it whenever the fuck we want. If we hold up this windmill for them to tilt at, we can hide the picture when we don't need it. And that's why when you actually look at the statistics on right now, the interest rate's high. So they're focusing on the fact that the interest rate is really high because they can't focus on the stock market because the stock market's doing great. Stock market's going bonkers, hitting new records. And in the S&P just the other day, I saw a guy at one of the reptile expos that I did the other day, had a shirt on that says, Biden didn't fix anything but the election. And I'm like, first of all, that's 10 buckets of stupid in one shirt. And the biggest reason is this. If you thought things were great during Trump, what the fuck did Biden need to fix? You can't fault someone for fixing something unless it was broke to begin with. So did Biden inherit a broken America that he needed to fix? Or was everything okay? And now you can't fault, but they can't even put together the basic argument. And it's because they've been lied to. And the thing is, there's been a downturn. Arden and I breed reptiles. I've got 60 baby ball pythons. We're going to be at the NARBC Reptile Expo in the Dallas area the weekend of April 10th, 11th, and 12th, or 11th, 12th, 13th, whatever it is. That's when we're going to be there, along with a couple other things. The price of high-end morph ball pythons has dropped. It was a little inflated. It's normalized. But because of that, people aren't selling as much as they used to, and they're saying, oh my God, the economy's terrible. No. This particular aspect of the economy is not doing as well as it was when a bunch of people during COVID decided to become breeders with no knowledge, no understanding, because it was something they could do at home and potentially put two snakes together and get 6 babies out of them that are worth twice what the parents are worth. Oh my God, we're printing our own money. There were a bunch of people who stupidly got into the business that way. And now they're like, no, the economy's terrible. No, you just don't know how to run a business. And the current business that you're in is not booming the way it was when everybody was scrambling to find a way to make money during a pandemic. But we don't educate people on that. Instead, we educate them on fears because we can pretend that we've solved them. Is anybody better off or worse off now than they were 4 years ago or 8 years ago? I'll tell you who's definitely worse off. Anybody who gets pregnant. Anybody who gets pregnant is definitely worse off. And that's just one thing. So, yes, right now, as much as I want to start bawling just for saying it, I'm convinced that he's going to win. I'm going to do everything in my power over the next year to make sure that doesn't happen. And I hope he winds up in prison because he's absolutely guilty. He owes $400 and some odd million in tax fraud. You know, I'm pretty sure, let's just imagine that my dad was going to vote for Trump. He probably is. I haven't talked to him. Don't give a shit. If I went back in time to when my dad was teaching me things about who to pick as president, about the character of the individual, if I said, Dad, I'm going to vote for someone who said on live TV without really knowing it that he liked to grab women by the pussy, and Dad, I'm going to vote for somebody who lies almost every time he opens his mouth, who may or may not be responsible for starting an insurrection. Dad, I'm going to vote for somebody who conned the U.S. government out of hundreds of millions of dollars in taxes by lying about the value of his property to inflate it when it was convenient and to deflate it when it was convenient. Dad, I'm going to vote for the guy who's been through multiple wives, lied to all of them, cheated on all of them. Dad, I'm going to vote for the guy who's not a politician, not a lawyer, who doesn't understand anything, and who thinks that maybe you could drink bleach to get rid of an infection. If my dad said anything other than, what the fuck happened to you? Did I drop you on the head when you were a little kid? I'd be shocked. And yet now that entire conversation is most likely to be reversed. How do you do that?
Because
I argue with people for a living. I argue with people for a living, and it doesn't always go well. But the reason I'm convinced Trump's going to win is because I've had the conversations with the people who are supporting him, and they're pissed. They are absolutely pissed that they're not running the world because they're God's chosen, or they're tired of the elite and the scientists and the politicians and all this stuff. You know, it's time for them to get their due. Well, let me tell you something, all you maggots. Go out and buy your lottery tickets, because that's the only chance you've got of becoming wealthy, despite what people have told you. And that chance is 1 in 97 billion or whatever it is. So, you know, keep praying, because God's not going to get you the winning lottery ticket numbers. Just like he's not going to cure your cancer. He's not going to get you that promotion. He's not going to save your dying child's life. God's not going to do shit for you. And neither is Donald Trump, your new God. Your golden toilet bowl God. Anyway, I hope that answered your question, Sam.
Yep. They call him their, what do they call him? Get their God Emperor. I think that's what they call him now.
Yeah.
I was going to say, when we were talking about the correct Bible, we need to talk about Dune inevitably, right? Like we definitely had sandworms. It says so in this book right here. Don't you see? We have a God Emperor. That's this other book. Don't you see? It's all in there. You just need to read the book. It's all consistent with itself. That means
I'm waiting for the Beetlejuice sequel for the other sandworms, but
Sam,
I gotta let you go. I appreciate the call.
Don't tell
but we
Bobert.
went on way too long.
All righty, guys.
Yeah. Thanks, Sam.
Catch you later.
Have a good one.
So, first of all, a huge thank you to all of our moderators. I know things got a little spicy from time to time there. And also to our call screener for, I think part of the reason things have been getting a slower start is that we've moved to daylight savings time, and not everybody does. And so for some people, the show seems to be starting an hour earlier, even though for me, it's the same time as it always is. We have super chats. Oh my gosh. And I got the hiccups.
Uh-oh.
All right, Nick, you start, and then I'll take over once I'm done hiccuping.
All right, so $10 from Etienne Unson. Everyone on the line is amazing, and I love all that you do. Jimmy, go watch an AI video of Matt agreeing with everything Jordan Peterson says. I think we should get right on that.
Oh my
right
God.
Away.
Yeah.
AI is dangerous for exactly this reason, right?
Oh my gosh. 999 from Falling Fiction. When will there be a St. Louis, Missouri convention? I would be stoked to go. And Matt, what's the probability of you debating someone like Ben Shapiro? I'll debate Ben Shapiro just as soon as somebody books it. I don't seek out individuals to debate. People ask me, will you debate this topic? And most of the time I don't care who the individual is. I'd be happy to debate Ben if we could arrange that. As far as St. Louis convention, there were some St. Louis secular conventions that I went to and participated with because I graduated. Falling Fiction maybe knows this. I graduated from Francis Howell in 1987, and my brother still lives in the St. Louis area. Hi, Brad. If you're in chat, if not, I love you, buddy. I love you even if you're in chat. But either way, Nick, what are the odds of getting right there at St. Louis at the Arch to do an AA convention in like the next 5 years?
Well, I'd say next 5 years is totally possible, but I will also say that we've booked the next 2, so certainly not until after 2026. So sorry to say, not for the next 2 years at least.
So,
but it's right on our list of places like that we would kind of go to. That's right in the area of the sort of places we would go. One challenge that we always have now, especially, is physical safety of our attendees, and so the policies in place in some states make it very challenging for us to have conferences there. For example, we probably would not have a conference right now in Arkansas, for example, or maybe even Texas. So.
Yep. Yeah, I wouldn't do shit in Texas if it weren't for the fact that I live here.
And, we don't want to write off entire states, but at the same time, we don't want to put people at risk. So anyway, Make Do Pieces sent a $10 super sticker, says thank you. Thank you.
And Make New Pieces, let me just say, I love your profile, but I'm just messing with you. That's Arden.
That's Arden.
Arden was lending a helping hand. $10 from Mike B. I had a dream where I called an electrician to fix my parents' house where I grew up. Matt showed up to fix everything, and I was like, whoa, so cool to see you. And he was like, do you have any needle? Do you have any needle? I don't know what that means.
It's a two-part. Next one.
Oh, okay. There we go. Do you have any needle nose pliers? That makes more sense. I kept asking him to teach my kids about skepticism, but he was just there to fix the outlets. Well, Mike, you don't ever have to worry about that because while my dad was an electrician and I was an electronics technician, I'm not qualified to do any wiring repairs on the house. As a matter of fact, I tried once to install a new switch in the kitchen and almost shocked the shit out of myself. But that was that was dumb on my part. I know enough. Anyway, I would be happy to teach your kids about skepticism instead of fixing your electrical stuff.
15 Canadian dollars from Lost. Something came to mind recently. The equivocation game that apologists use with the word faith doesn't work in French. Truth, fact should make sense in all languages. No? Yeah. That's right.
Yeah, I wouldn't get too hung up on that. There are certainly there are different languages where concepts don't translate particularly well. Yep. And English is an obnoxious language. It's easy for those of us who grew up with it, kind of, but I understand why everybody has difficulty with it. The spellings adopted from all over the place, words adopted as a matter of convenience, and then you just use foreign words for things like deja vu or whatever, whenever you feel like it. It's or when you don't have a better option. And then
I always love
the romance languages where words are gendered to some extent, but not in the same way that we're talking about gender the rest of the time. You were saying what, Nick?
I love the joke about English being 3 languages in a trench coat, and I think that's extremely appropriate and accurate. Like English is, but you're exactly right. Language is always limiting, and we have these concepts that are always imperfect, and that's why a lot of the sophistry is really obnoxious.
Yep. $10 from Allison Janae. I got disconnected at the end, but thanks for taking my call. Oh, it's Allie. This was all excellent info and very validating. I'm definitely going to try and find a secular workplace if able to practice medicine. I find the best place for you. If you wind up working at a religious facility, you're still doing good, and you're probably doing more good there because they will then have to see on a daily basis a decent human being who cares more about the patients than what they think their God thinks about the patients.
100%. 989 from CW. During my first follow-up appointment after having my son, my doctor refused to prescribe any type of birth control. When I asked why, the doctor stated they were a religious hospital. Overreach much? Yikes. Yeah. I think I saw someone in the chat mention that they had to wait to get discharged and wait like months to get a tubal ligation after having a kid as well. So same thing. It's just really unfortunate.
I was going to point out when Nick pointed out earlier that you can't access Pornhub in Texas. I think that's still true. I didn't find out until 3 days after it got shut down. And I saw a news article. I was just sitting in my recliner. I saw a news article. It was like, Texans are upset and resorting to VPNs to access Pornhub in Texas. And I was like, what? Somehow, despite being largely in the loop on things and paying attention to news, Arden and I have been, spring is the busiest time for us. We're doing a lot of reptile conventions. We are starting, the next year's breeding of colubrids and things like that. And there's just been a lot going on. And so I missed the news. And so as soon as I saw it, I was like, is that true? And I went over my browser and I just typed in pornhub.com and Pornhub. As a matter of fact, let me pull it up. I'm not going to put it on screen, but
so that's a risk.
Here's what I see at pornhub.com. Dear user, as you may know, your elected officials in Texas are requiring us to verify your age before allowing you to access our website. Not only does this impinge on the rights of adults to access protected speech, it fails strict scrutiny by employing the least effective and yet also most restrictive means of accomplishing Texas's stated purpose of allegedly protecting minors. When safety and compliance are at the forefront of our mission, providing identification every time you want to visit an adult platform is not an effective solution for protecting users online, and in fact will put minors and your privacy at risk. Attempting to mandate age verification without any means to enforce its scale gives platforms a choice to comply or not, leaving hundreds of thousands of websites open and accessible. Anyway, they go on. I'm not going to read all of it to you, but they're encouraging you to learn more about device-based age verification solutions that make the internet safer while respecting your privacy, and to contact your representatives and demand device-based verification solutions that will make the internet safer while also respecting your privacy. Pornhub, while there are definitely issues with Pornhub, nobody should leave here going, oh, Matt's another one of those that turns a blind eye to Pornhub. Pornhub's got loads of problems. I don't spend any time really on Pornhub, or almost never on Pornhub. I have other porn sites that I like much better. But the point is, Pornhub keeps doing things right. They keep doing things smart. They publish anonymously the search results, so you can see that Utah really, really loves them some gay porn, or here's what the number one search was in somewhere else. And then when the government does something, they write up a reasonable, smooth, hey, you can't access this right now. Here's what you need to do. They didn't say, go get yourself a VPN. They didn't say, find a way to get around the law. They didn't say, storm the Capitol. What they said was, go research this, look into solutions, and contact your elected officials to implement these solutions. They don't need to tell people to get VPN. Everybody else is advertising that left and right. They already know that's going to happen. Nobody's going to stop people from accessing porn if they want. Porn is now freely available to anyone and everyone. All you need to do is stop trying to stick your head in the sand, and you could make it safer for everyone, the same as we've done with many other things. But is this me? I guess 999 from CW. During my first follow-up appointment.
That was the next one. Yeah,
we read that one.
Yeah.
Now we get this one. 99. Holy moly! Thank you, Batch Tech. Matt, you're a hero of the addition to my intellect. This is the Nova Fade singer. Oh, thanks so much for listening, and I love the rest of the crew, even Jimmy. I tell you what, and thank you hugely. This is incredibly generous. Batch Tech sent me an email today, and it was boom, boom, boom. I'm going to find the link. There it is right there. It was a link to a YouTube video of a song that his band produced. He was very clear. He didn't want me to do anything with it. Just give it a listen. I liked it. I could not make out all the lyrics while I was listening to it over my bad speakers, I guess. And so I sent a quick email saying, hey, could you send me a lyrics list for it? The lyrics may actually be there on the YouTube video. I don't know. But if any of you like Tool, Disturbed, music along those lines, I think this had a similar feel and was very much an enjoyable song that they wrote and released before Roe v. Wade was overturned, but talked about, a little bit about the hypocrisy of religious people with regard to children. So I'm going to dump the link right into chat. There we go. And once the show's over, cue that one up and listen to it. If you like it, let them know.
All right. And next one is $10 from Monkey at Typewriter. If predicting that someone is going to be mocked by the world makes them God, then my dad is God, and he was more God when he drank. Good show, fellas. Yeah. Enjoying Nick as a guest. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
$10 Canadian from Lost. Follow-up thought. I wonder what whole new contradictions and differences are in the French version of the Bible versus English and original language. Science textbooks are consistent when translated. Yeah, it is trying to figure out what's in the original isn't impossible. I was hoping that maybe Virginia would know enough to be able to dig in on this, but as soon as she called that a fake Bible, it was I knew what we were dealing with. This is AV 1611 stuff, and AV stands for authorized version. These are the people who think only the 1611 version of the King James is the only authorized version, only authorized English version of the Bible. And yeah, it's a good one. It's going to be the one that's the most misogynistic, most xenophobic, very strong on its support of slavery. And the reason they don't like the NIV is because the people who translated the NIV softened it on multiple issues. I'm going to add that to my video list. I haven't gone through and done it yet, but there are websites that go through and point out the problems with the NIV where they've changed things away from the AV 1611. And I want to show you what they're upset about. It reminds me very much of the Trump supporters who are upset that the rest of us aren't racist enough.
All right, $10 from BW Dingus. Matt, love the beard. Nick, glad to see you on the line. Glad to be here. Thank you so much, Dingus. I say lovingly.
Thank you for acknowledging the beard. I'm having fun with it. $9.99 from Shannon Mack. Hi, Shannon. I want to be one of Matt's backup dancers. We should be called the Fergalburgle Manergalburgles. Happy early birthday. Thank you. In case I don't catch you next week. Also, great job, Nick. Have a great con.
Thanks, Shannon. Good to hear from you. $20 from Erica America. I'm going to go with that pronunciation. Yep. No message there, but that sounds good to me.
That's all right. $20 is a message I'll accept. Thank you, Erica. $10 from Storm Chaser Noah. I used to be a Trump guy. It's all fear-based voting. They're going to take our guns or save the babies. Your guys show the reason I got out of that cult. Oh my gosh. Keep it up. Some of them can wake up. Thank you, Noah. I can't tell. I mean, I can't even begin to tell you how wonderful that and optimistic that makes me feel, because I kid you not, I don't know how much it shows. I won't quit, but daily I think about it. Daily, I feel like I've not accomplished a single thing. It doesn't matter how many thousands of people have emailed or shown up at things saying, hey, you helped me become a better skeptic, or you helped me find my way out of religion. Waking up every day with seemingly more flat earthers, more anti-vaxxers, more anti-science people, more Trump supporters, more MAGA supporters, more anti-democracy advocates. It's a lot. And so the fact that we helped somebody out, that's huge. I really appreciate that, Noah. Thank you for saying so.
And then we've got 10 from PT Collins. How many Trump supporters does it take to change a light bulb? None. Trump claims that he fixed it, and they all stand and cheer in a dark room. Thanks so much, PT Collins.
$20 from Michael Farmer. Texas HHS is taking public comments until tomorrow on access to trans care for adults. Please let them know you think access to that care is important to you. The organization Trans Texas has details and contact information. Taking public comment until tomorrow? All right. Honey, have you looked into that at all?
No, I have no idea what that is.
All right. I'm gonna thanks for that note, Michael. I've added a note here to see what, if anything, we can do before tomorrow. Maybe at a minimum, if it's not too late, we can get some notice about it on the Transatlantic Call-In Show.
I don't know what currency that is. ARS? Anyone know? No clue.
That's
whatever it is,
Argentine
1,000
pesos.
of them. Oh, Argentine pesos.
It's
1,000 Argentine pesos from Dernurio. Says, maybe a civil war on the horizon. I mean, these people have militias already. I was just in Washington, D.C., speaking with members of Congress about a bill Jamie Raskin has put forward. Jamie Raskin is the co-chair of the Congressional Free Thought Caucus, member of Congress from Maryland. Good guy. That would create new penalties for people who engage in violence under the guise of paramilitary organizations. It doesn't criminalize people taking part in gathering. Obviously, it's constitutionally people have a right to get together with people with like-minded views. What it does is make sure that those folks don't then convert that into military action or violence or threats of violence that take away people's civil rights. So take a look at that. We lobbied on that at the Secular Coalition's lobby day a couple weeks ago in DC. So speaking of militias, thought I'd mention that.
Cool. Thanks, Dernurio. $9.99 from Jason. Thank you, Nick, for being on. Yeah, I'd like to say that too. Have some free time this summer checking out a conference for sure. Look forward to my first one. And thanks, Matt and team, for having Nick on. Of course. I know I don't talk about it enough, and I'm not the best. I don't always, I don't remember the last time I mentioned my own Patreon. Patreon.com/atheist debates. Go there, chime in for $1 or $2. It helps, keeps me in health insurance along with what I'm doing here at the line. But I am, in fact, still, at least for now, on the board of American Atheists until they decide I haven't done anything in 3 years, and maybe they should get somebody else in to do it. But even if I'm not actively working on the board, what's that?
I said that's fake news. You've done a lot for us over the years, and don't minimize your own contributions.
In any case, even if I don't end up on the board, continuing to promote this stuff is going to be something I always do, because I've seen firsthand and I've felt firsthand just how life-changing it can be for someone who's been stuck, surrounded by religious people with no voice, no attention, no connections, to sneak out and go to a convention. And by the way, I don't mind saying this right in front of the guy whose job it is to get you to pay and contribute to all this. Go to the convention. If you're in Philly, go to the convention, even if you don't pay to get in, and hang out in the hotel lobby and interact with the other atheists. It will be enjoyable. It will be eye-opening, and it will be a way to get your foot in the door so that the next time you can feel comfortable contributing. But I know people who go to these conventions who've never heard a talk, never been to a dinner. They just hang in the hotel. And I can say that despite being a board member, because I've already paid for other people who go to the convention. So you're not stealing from us. It's a way to connect people. And if you are able to contribute to American Atheist, that's part of what the convention is about. This is the primary fundraiser for AA for the year, or at least it normally is. And there are a number of employees, lawyers, Nick, people doing the magazine stuff, people arranging the conventions. All of them are there because of the generosity of people who know and understand the value of making sure that atheists don't have to keep waking up thinking they're alone, that they're the only one around, that they have nobody to talk to, and that they need to stay silent around family members and other people. You have to build community. And this is one of the ways we do it.
We got $9.99 from Jamnick06. Thanks, Matt, Nick, Arden, screeners, mods, and the line for another great show. Can't make it to PA, but the church in Tampa is only an hour away. Looking forward to seeing Matt debate live. FBMB GFYJ.
FBMB is Fergal Burgle Benergle Burgle.
Okay, gotcha. That's right.
And GFYJ is go fuck yourself, Jimmy, because Jimmy's not good at compliments, so we say nasty things to him. And then YGH is you're gay, homie. Yeah, I hope to see you in Tampa. There's some people. Kristen reached out to me and said that there were some folks there, part of a women's group that she's with, that were possibly looking to hang out afterwards. I know I fly out early Saturday to get back home. I basically hop in. I'll be around Friday during the day, but I'll be doing debate prep, then doing the debate, then visit a little while afterwards, and then I leave pretty quickly Saturday morning, so I'm not going to get to spend a lot of time in Tampa visiting. But I do look forward to hanging out with people and at least, show up at the debate and say hi. 999 from Vibe Farmer. An argument I heard from a Christian was that culture is moving away from Christianity. I argued that if anything, it's moving closer to Jesus' teachings with love for all and socialism. Thoughts? Oh, well, I think undeniably we're moving away from Christianity because Christianity is in decline as the organized sense. If you're arguing for socialist Jesus, I've always found socialist Jesus to be mostly a stretch of people trying to find the good in something. I'm getting ready to do a series of videos going through the actual words that Jesus is supposed to have said and what's good and bad about them, not just the Sermon on the Mount, which I've already done. But Jesus wasn't a hippie socialist in the sense that you might want to attribute to today. He was a freeloader who contributed nothing of substance to society, ran around letting everybody else feed him, and then they gave him credit for miracles of supposedly feeding, a bunch of people with some loaves and fishes. But he built a scourge and chased the moneylenders out of the temple. Wanting to live free off of other people isn't the sort of socialism that we should be advocating for. Helping people in need is what we should be advocating for. Nobody should have given Jesus a single bite to eat. Not only was he supposedly an able-bodied carpenter, but he was supposedly God incarnate. He should have never needed anything from anybody. But, I'm not a big fan of Jesus, so I can say
that. Next up is $10 from SJL. I'm so confused by atheist Trumpers. My brother is one. Don't they realize they are aligning themselves hard with Christian nationalism? Again, I think one of the things I said was, people are very concerned about power and they're very concerned about holding on to power. And so it doesn't matter that the ideology sort of comes second. It's a lot of, have I successfully owned a lib today? Is a lot of what I see from some of the more reactionary folks. And, people are complicated. I don't want to presume to speak for create a justification for those folks. They can speak for themselves on that. But I do know that for some of them that I've seen, that's a big reason of their support for Trump is, we have to push back against the wokeists. It's just don't you have something better to do with your time? Organize your sock drawer or, I don't know, literally anything else other than talking about this. But sure, whatever.
I don't understand what organize your sock drawer means. I have a drawer that socks go into. They don't get paired up. Other stuff gets paired up, folded up, everything else. I gave up on socks decades ago.
It's probably better use of time then.
That was the last super chat, although I'm betting somebody else gets another super chat in while I'm wrapping up here because that's what always happens. As a reminder, this wonderful, awesome shirt that I've got here, which is part of the birthday collection and competition between myself and Jimmy. How could you not want to walk down the street with this big, red, horny face right on your stomach? You can go to linemerch.com to get that. And you can also get Jimmy's Unafraid to Disappoint Daddy Magical or Otherwise, the well-constructed, beautiful, two-faced, wonderful. See, I only have one face on mine, but Jimmy's got two faces, and it deserves it, and I like it. You can get it on T-shirts and hoodies, and evidently stickers and cups. Maybe not stickers. I don't know. Is that a sticker? You can actually can I get a sticker?
That was the holographic sticker.
I want that sticker. Why didn't I get that sticker when I got my shirt? I want the sticker. Anyway, you can get that stuff as and see, you know, do you guys support me more than you support Jimmy? That's important to know. I mean, Jimmy's good and all, but did he show up on Wednesday with the president of American Atheists? Did he give you an impassioned reason to go to Philadelphia to the convention? What's Jimmy done for you lately? I mean, you know, you want to keep giving him credit for, oh my God, he created the line and he created all those, you know, he's not even producing. I mean, Arden's doing all the work. Jimmy shouldn't sell a single t-shirt. I should sell all of the t-shirts. Give me your money. Okay. That's as close to give me your money as I can actually get and remotely sound serious. Thank you guys so much for tuning in today. Huge thank you to everybody who contributed super chats and to those who called in. There's a great deal of stuff going on in the next few months related to the election and everything else. But here on the Line Network, it's worth pointing out that tomorrow's Transatlantic Call-In show starts at 5 p.m. tomorrow instead of 2 p.m. and will feature, oops, I lost my notes, deleted it straight up, but it's Arden and Dr. Ben. Let me go back to the actual list of stuff that Arden gave me. The Sunday show will be me and Jimmy this week. Monday, Skeptalk will be Shannon Q and Will McSee. Tuesday's Chewed Gum, which is turning out to be one of the most awesome shows on the network. If you haven't seen it, you don't actually have to watch it on Tuesday. You can, and you should, but if you can't get there on Tuesday, you can watch it after the fact, along with the other clips. This one's going to be Arden Hart with Stacey Gron from the Stacey's Mom podcast. And next episode of The Hang Up next Wednesday will be myself and Eve Was Framed. I am going to give Nick Fish the final word for tonight's show. Nick, where do people need to go to find out about American Atheists and the convention so they can come tell you all the ways in which you are awesome, or how you fucked up so bad, but they decided to continue supporting you anyway?
We really value the second one, actually. So come tell us what we need to be doing more of and how we can get more involved, how we can help you locally. I mean, that is a big part of what we do. Go to atheists.org, go to convention.atheists.org for more information about the Philadelphia convention. We hope we'll see you there. Get registered, come on down. And if we don't see you there, we better see you in Minneapolis next year. Thank you all for your very kind words. It's always a pleasure to be on the Hang Up with Matt and to talk with all of you. Love this community. Love getting a chance to speak with your listeners, watchers, and community members. It's a highlight of my day. So thank you all for your participation and for very kind words.
Thanks, everybody. And one final super chat snuck in at the end, like I said it would. Chris Carrillo, $10. I went on the Trans Texas website. They have a link that takes you to the Texas HHS email. Deadline for public comment is tomorrow by 5 p.m. Central Standard Time. So we won't be able to get it announced on Transatlantic Call-In show. But yes, for all the rest of you, go to transtexas.com, especially if you're in Texas. Find out what you can do to contact and participate in getting public comment on this Texas HHS email by tomorrow at 5 p.m. In the meantime, Arden, did I miss anything?
Nope, but for some reason that song file was in the middle of the song and not at the beginning.
The thing I missed was Arden's beautiful face.
Oh my God.
And now I get to go say hi. I'll be sappy. Thanks to all of our producers. Thanks to everybody who called in. Thanks to all of you for engaging in chat. Thanks to Virginia and your backup dancer for at least half-ass making an attempt to support a ridiculous version of the Bible. We'll be back next week. Don't forget to tune into the other shows and